Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to the Rules and Public Policy meeting. I did not really have any agenda items, so we do have some old business to discuss. So I thought I would go through that. As far as the meeting minutes, I will get those all caught up as promised by our meeting in August. So I'm still working on that and still working on, I'm going to at least have my meeting agendas and meeting minutes in a binder and put them back there, and, you know, I guess we'll figure out the digital part or whatever.
There is absolutely a file cabinet.
Well, it's not a very good one, and
Well,
I'm not,
co-chair.
I thought we got a new file cabinet. Didn't we get a new file cabinet?
no.
Oh,
Somebody
okay.
did, we didn't.
Oh, we
Did
didn't. Oh,
not,
okay.
no.
Okay,
And
thank you.
I'm one battle at a time. I want my chairs, so
Yeah.
after the chairs, then we'll move on to the next thing, so we'll.
Gotcha.
Who's your co-chair?
Matt Miller Novak.
Okay. Do you want me to take minutes for this meeting tonight?
No, I got it. It's all right. I never make Matt take minutes.
Yeah, good luck on that battle.
I know, he's slacking.
Joining you for power.
Oh, no problem. You're welcome.
Okay, so we just have old business. We've been talking about legislative procedure, which, that's Matt's baby, so I'm gonna pass that. I did bring the council rules for us to we can talk about if you guys don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Public.
So, I printed out the council rules, one copy of the council rules, and I can make a copy for everyone, so everybody can kind of mark it up if you guys like.
Oh, I didn't bring that. I had that at home.
That's
but-
okay, this will be our markup copy.
That works.
Would you guys like that?
Oh, yeah, we can use that. I'm fine with
Yeah.
just using that as our markup copy. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I was just offering to make copies of this.
I think I have a copy in my.
Yeah, I
bag.
left my
I think I
copy
have a
at
digital
home.
copy.
You have a digital copy. Would you like for me to make you a copy, Lily?
For markup,
Just to discuss.
so I can follow, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
while we're here.
Please, thank you.
Okay,
Thank
just,
you.
if you
Yeah, I have
guys would
mine
just
in-
give me a moment, I'll go make a couple of copies. 'Cause
I
I'll
have
make
some
one
of my
for
thicker.
Beth. I know she's on her way.
Let me just
Yeah, I
triple
have
check
some of
that I
my
have
thicker
that before I tell you
documents in
not to
an
make a copy.
accordion file, and that's one of them,
I am
that I left at
sweating.
home.
Hey.
Mhm. Hello.
Hi, friend.
I'm just
Yeah.
glad I wasn't the last.
I
one
gotta
here.
remember to, I'm like that too, UC's back to work, so I gotta remember to leave work on time to get here. I know, hey, I know.
Gosh, and it's hot in here.
Mm-hmm,
We're trying to get, well, Ron's trying to get fixed.
trying to get it cool, Rules and public policy, yeah, trying to.
And yes, I have a copy.
I don't know what's going on.
Sorry. Kinda took
Yeah,
your
we stole your
chairs.
spot for the power, but I can move. if
It
you
must
need
be
me to.
set on smoking.
No, it's not.
Set on broken.
Hey, yeah, there you go. We all got on, most of us have on cotton, so we're saved. Most of, and sleeveless shirts too.
I got denim.
So, and I will tell you historically, if that is turned down too low during the day, the coils freeze up.
I just heard it kick on.
It did, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Miss Orb.
Those are so cute. Oh, that's the name of my class.
I have this for you, but I didn't finish the back, so I was just gonna
Oh, you're fine.
finish them, if that's okay. We're gonna
Totally.
go out tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then,
I have some of yours too, but I can give it to you in between the two meetings.
all right. They were
They're
like,
just-
I had 5 sheets. They were like, you want me to sign again? Yes, please.
I know, I felt
I
bad.
know.
Well, and a bunch of people, yeah. I'll tell you later.
When I was out with them, I was trying to get ahead of Erica. I said, I said, if Erica makes them sign 3 times, they might see me and go, I'm not signing anymore. So every time we
But I need to
sign,
know what streets you guys did.
I jumped ahead.
Which
Cor-
which ones did you guys do?
Clover
Clover Knoll.
Oh, Clover Knoll. Okay.
Clover Knoll.
All right, because I got my little area. Went through my little area.
And are we still live? Yeah.
Oh, we are. Sorry. It's so hot.
Oh, we are recording. I forgot, yeah. Cell phone silent. Junk calls when I'm in meetings or.
Do what?
This happens. Look, if you haven't been out for, what I said, it's a junk call. If you haven't been out for me, don't worry about it.
Oh, I took them all out
I was
yesterday.
out yesterday, and I was on my own street, and I was about to pass out. A couple of my neighbors gave me water. Oh, it was so hot.
I was out yesterday
Oh,
too.
thank you. I just, junk call, I told you, anytime, silence. And I don't know what it was, but it took me 2 hours to do my own street.
And then
Said I did, I didn't. Then, his wife, I got it, him and his wife come to open the door. She rolls her eyes at me, she said, it's Sunday, I'm not giving any signatures.
let me tell you, there's this little old man on my street,
You guys are being recorded. The meeting has started.
and he invited me in and invited me to cool air. And then gave him the spiel. I had all the sheets. And he was like, well, I don't know any of you, including you. I don't think I can sign. I was like, oh, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, so, our
We're in trouble. I'm in
council
trouble.
rules, you guys have a copy over there, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Okay, council.
There is, one specifically that I was thinking about.
Okay,
Well, this, if you look on page 3, and it talks about meetings open to the public.
page 3. Okay.
And then it also talks about public comment at council meetings. Is there, there was a citizen who, she says that she can't come to the meetings because I think several of us met her, because she can't drive at night. And I'm wondering if there's any way that, we can adjust these to make it so that she can participate? Or people like in her situation can participate?
I'm sorry, what page are you on?
3.
Page 3.
3.
Okay, thank you.
I thought you said section 8.3, and I'm like, that does not look what you're talking
I
about.
don't know, because
Page
we-
3.
Because we lost the Zoom feature. That was the one feature where you could raise your hand.
Right.
But then maybe some senior citizens don't have a laptop, some, not all, probably the majority of them do.
I guess, do you have any the only suggestion that I can think of would be, and it's already an option, is to send in an email to the clerk.
Right.
I don't know how else we do it other than making our meetings during the day, and then I would say 100% of us can't make it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I appreciate her plight, but I don't know how we would possibly fix that.
Do they need to participate in order to?
I mean, not
At least
necessarily. Yeah, not necessarily.
We can have them just email the
Right, email the
questions.
clerk, like Mary Jo
Right.
said, yeah.
And, just have it live and then email the questions is an option, as opposed to like
Oh, I see
no
what you
option.
mean. That's a good, if she's on a laptop or a
Yeah, because
computer.
90% of the time, I have my council email up while I'm here anyways.
Or I'm sure even if she called the city, if she didn't have access to email or computer, if she was able to even call the city and leave a message with the mayor's assistant, I'm sure that'd be a great role for her to take down questions like that and give them to the clerk.
I don't think that's within her purview.
She wouldn't be here.
To be the
after
city
s-
secretary?
After 6 p.m.
The city secretary, I feel like that should be something that she can be able to do. I mean, she has Miss Ewald's email. I don't see why it would be a problem if for some reason somebody can't email Miss Ewald to have them just call the city center.
But would the secretary wouldn't be here after 6 p.m.? Am I getting the times messed up?
Right,
No, she
so
wouldn't
if-
be here after
I'm
6,
just
but
saying
she's here
if for
during
some
the
reason
day.
somebody didn't have access to email, instead of emailing the clerk, if they had access to a phone, they could call the city center, leave a message of what they would like to ask council, and the city secretary, currently it's Diane, can email the clerk for that person.
Basically transcribe a message.
Right.
Is
So
is
that
where
way,
you're going?
yeah, because I don't know if this woman or if other people who would like to participate don't have email, but I feel like that could also be a suggestion that we could give that individual.
Is there,
And there's always the option of emailing any one of us.
Right.
And all of
Right.
our email addresses are on the website.
is there like a voicemail, like a generic voicemail for city council, Mr. Mosby?
No,
Oh, then we only have email.
Hmm,
somebody would have to retrieve that, so.
right.
We'd have to assign somebody to that if we did it. Do you want to look into that?
I guess so. I guess we can investigate a generic voicemail.
If it would be like somebody on council who's receiving that, I mean, I'll volunteer to do that, but I don't know if you were thinking, like, asking Ms. Dewald to do it as the clerk, or if we do end up getting it, I mean, I'll volunteer to,
We could rotate. It wouldn't
Yeah.
need to be,
there you go, yeah.
it wouldn't be a burden on one person. I think we should rotate it.
Yeah, there we
Right, we can just take turns or something like that.
go.
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay, so, all right, well, there's that.
We know.
Dress in cotton.
Yes. Okay,
No,
so,
we're just using the
We're
plug.
power. There's no power over there. So the answer is no, it doesn't matter where you sit.
Okay, sorry, keep going. Ms. Underwood.
That was.
yeah, so there was that. I'm just kind of flipping through the pages
Oh, yeah.
so we can just go through them since literally all of us are on this committee. Ms. Hartman, do you have a copy of your council rules with you by any chance? No, okay. I'll go and make a copy for you really quickly.
You want me to do it?
Oh, that would be great, thank you. And then that way,
I've been meaning, I haven't had time to organize.
oh, no problem, I understand. You know, I was in your position once upon a time, and I can tell you, being an empty nester is great. It's just the greatest thing ever. Great, great, great. Almost empty, because I still have a college student. Okay, so I'm now on page 5. I just kind of flipped through to page 5, where it talks about meetings of council. Yeah, I don't see anything there. I mean, looks fairly normal. What does everybody think?
We have really good news. And these were generated from trial and error.
I think so.
They seem to cover a lot of common topics.
Mhm. Okay. All right, then I'll move on to presiding officer. Nothing jumps out
Yeah, no.
at me there. Then the next section is members, starting on page 6. Duty to vote, right to floor.
So this, not that I have anything to change, but I know this has been a question a lot of when are people allowed to abstain from voting? It's just right there in that first little paragraph.
Right.
I just know that that's been a question a few times, so I'm glad that I just read that.
But, this, like any other rule or law or ordinance or whatever you have, if nobody enforces it, then.
Right, right.
I know what you mean. I've heard people abstain, but
Right.
wasn't.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't meaning to
Yeah,
say
no,
that
no,
people
no.
shouldn't do that. I just honestly, I'm glad that I read that, because now I know.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, there are plenty of other things to fight about.
Oh, yeah, definitely. No, I agree. I just was pointing that out in case
Yeah,
anybody was curious,
yep.
as I was.
It's right there in the rules. Everybody has a duty to vote. Okay, so, what about limitation of debate? This is one that we've talked about. No member shall be allowed to speak more than once on any one subject until every other member choosing to speak thereon shall have spoken.
Interesting.
What do we think about that?
Limited to 5 minutes at a time.
Well, we aren't doing it.
I believe that goes back to what she just said.
Right, well, this is the rule, and, we can always, point out that this is the rule and, stop the, when somebody is going on and on and on, we could,
I know I'm guilty of breaking that, so I'll definitely watch that from now on.
But apparently not so much that anybody objected to it, so.
Yeah, I'm a good speaker.
Okay, so,
It almost seems like whoever's presiding has to kind of keep us to these.
Keep us
like
on-
When we say, Mr. President, if 3 or 4 of us say that, then those 3 or 4 have to speak before anybody. So it's kind of
Right.
like the presiding person has to keep us in order.
I think he does a good job.
Mhm.
Okay. I don't think that we run across personal privilege and character attacks, but apparently somebody felt it necessary to add that to the rules at some point.
Oh, I see, I didn't know.
Dissents and protest. Talks about attendance at meetings and excusal during meetings.
I know that that was something that we wanted to talk about, like what were the repercussions of missing X amount of meetings? When do we kind of draw the line and what comes from there?
I don't think it's an issue anymore.
But I think that it's still necessary to address it so that way it, doesn't become an issue in the future. Not that anybody, I'm not talking about any of you at all. I don't want anybody to think I'm pointing
It's-
fingers.
I think where you're going is, you're better off to have it in writing before it's an issue.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Right?
We'd
So,
rather set the precedent before then we have to, exactly what she just said. It'll
Okay.
stop me from talking.
All right, so,
did you talk twice on the same subject?
Did anybody else want to talk? I'm so sorry.
well, this is a committee meeting. It's not really
It was all
Yeah,
tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
You want-
It's so hot.
it is,
I was just
It-
thinking to
it's-
myself,
it's
I hope
cooler.
the air is on.
right.
It's not.
It's cooler than it was,
It's
but
on in the main
it's still,
office, but
it's still
not
hot
on-
in here. So-
It's not in here for some reason.
I
It's
will,
cooler outside. Should we swing this outside?
Yeah,
yeah, I was gonna
the shade.
bring one of my fans and put over here, but, we're low on plugs.
We're gonna go with Mary Jo theory for a minute and let it thaw out.
So, do we want to, so how would we go about then adding something about attendance and kind of the repercussions that come from unattending?
What do we think is,
Reasonable, yeah.
what is unacceptable attendance? Like 2 in a month, 4 in a month? Oh, not 4 in a month. Yeah, 4 in a month.
There's only
But
2 meetings a
there's-
month.
I feel like it could be
Sorry.
something like no more than 2 in 1 month or 5 over 1 year or something.
I can't
I
touch
don't
it.
know, I mean, we
It doesn't
haven't
have
had
to be those
anybody,
numbers.
people typically don't miss, right?
No, I
Not
haven't, and I haven't had any
currently.
issues considering the things that I have going on in my life and on the, with dad and things and stuff.
Right.
But, it does suck if it did fall in that realm, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, right, and
So-
we didn't have to make it those numbers, I was
Right,
just saying,
I'm just-
so-
Well,
X amount
how
of
about, and then
No,
the
we're talking about
legitimateness of it.
unexcused, right, we're talking about just
Jobs.
Yeah.
no call, no show.
Okay.
Yeah,
We're not talking
unexcused-
about like
Unexcused.
legitimate family emergencies,
Right, okay.
because those happen.
Because and I feel like too, because we always vote to excuse, so it could be
Right.
if you have 2 in 1 month where it's not voted as an excused absence, then
Yeah.
the repercussions would come in.
No,
That's
these are,
how I-
these are council meetings, right?
Right,
Council.
yeah, and again, I think, no call, no show, because we did have that.
Right,
Yeah.
we did deal with that.
So what do you want to say?
And the call is supposed to go to the presiding officer. So
Right.
if I can't make it to this meeting, I should contact you. If I can't make it to a council meeting, I should contact Mike.
Mike, right,
That's what, so that's another thing we talk about then. Do we want to make this an all meeting thing or just for all council meetings?
I thought this says council meetings, rules of council.
I think it should be council.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's rules of council, and we're just in a
Right, we're
committee
committees,
meeting.
too. I
Well-
think they should be both.
But everyone's
Well-
not on every committee, so.
well, the
Right, but
thing
if you're
is,
showing up
though,
the
is
committees you sign up for.
if I just decide to stop showing up at these committee meetings, then it's a problem, right?
Right.
Because I'm the chair of both committees.
Right.
So, if I just, kind of no call, no show,
Right.
then, I think that's an issue. So I think there has to be something. If you're just a member of the committee, fine, but if you're a chair or a co-chair and you don't call and you don't show up, then that's something different, I think.
Agreed.
Sure, because there's still the quorum part. Like, a couple of us, myself included, I was late today. So there wasn't quorum here. You couldn't start the meeting until we
Right.
got here. If there were enough people that couldn't show up tonight, you would have had to cancel the meeting because you wouldn't have had quorum. So I think it is still a factor for council
Yeah.
meetings, for committee meetings.
That's a good
for that-
point.
For that point.
I agree.
It's a
How
good
many
point.
people do you have to have on committee meetings to have it?
Depends on the number of people on the committee. So for this committee, I need 4.
Yep.
Yeah, fun times.
Wow.
So, I think as.
At
like-
least half is the equation. Thank you. Ooh.
Well, then there aren't 8.
Well,
You said at least
you want to
half.
do 3.5?
Well,
There's 7.
I'm more than a half.
Right.
Well, I'm more than one.
So we just, 4 makes sense, it's 4
Yeah.
out of 7.
So I feel like it could be, if you miss if you have more than 1 unexcused absences from a committee or all council meeting within a 3-month period, then you face repercussions. How does that sound? Or is that already too much?
I don't know.
I don't know how to go
I
down
don't
this
think
path. I don't
unexcused,
know how to go down this path.
unexcused
I think it's just
is
the way
no
we-
call, no show, right?
Right,
Right.
Right.
That should never be the case.
right.
Right.
I mean, we
Well-
should all be responsible adults that can just, it takes 3 seconds to send a text.
Right.
Mike, I can't make it tonight. I'm sorry.
So then,
I think 1 in 3 months, that's liberal. That if you're gonna make a boundary for it to be dealt with, that sounds good to me. I mean, honestly, for me, unexcused I don't think that should ever happen. If you're not attending, you need to communicate.
because I can
agree.
imagine like something crazy, like, oh, you got in a car accident on the way here, you weren't able to text or call. So I just wouldn't want somebody
That happened a
Some-
lot to somebody else.
I I just wouldn't want something like that to happen to anybody and then have them have to face repercussions on top of what they already just obviously went through. And so
Well-
I feel like more than 1 in 3 months would be a good.
But I would
that's
even
fine.
come back and say, even, let's just go with that scenario. You were in a car wreck on your way here, right? First of all, we'd probably hear the sirens.
You probably hear it, so one
Right,
place per mile.
right,
Yeah,
right.
that's a good point.
But then, second of all, I would think, I had a wreck. I was on my way here. I could say, council members, I apologize, I wasn't at the last meeting, I was a no-call, no-show. Here is my justification,
Right.
right? You bring your mom's written excuse, kind of thing. And I think council would, I hope, would be a little lenient towards that, and maybe that one wouldn't really go in the checkbook as a slash against you,
Right.
right? It
I
could
think
be
we could do
excused
that.
on the back end, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. All right, I
So,
like it.
You
so
think?
we say
Is there a
one-
problem? Does anyone see
I
an
agree with
issue
that.
with that?
Yeah, I agree. So you're saying 1 meeting every 3 months?
Unexcused,
Okay.
Is
No
what you
call, no
get.
show. Okay.
Yeah, that's like your pass.
yes.
Okay, I like it.
So that means 1 meeting, you just missed, is that between council and committee?
Yeah. And then,
Okay.
so what are the
What's the
repercussions
repercussions,
from
yeah.
that then? So let's say I miss 2 within 3 months, what is my repercussion?
Unexcused?
Yeah,
No
unexcused.
pay for 1 month? Can we do that?
I don't wanna delve into that.
You can.
Mm-mm,
Why not?
don't want to.
I think I think
mm-mm.
no pay is, if you have, you said 2 over a 3-month
2
period of time.
unexcused over a
I think it
3-month
should
period
just
of
be
time.
Prorated.
It should just be what?
Prorated.
Prorated.
I don't know what that means.
Like, if you missed 2, whatever it is, divided over, then do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, okay, I see.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
So if you look at it from the calendar perspective, because I'm not sure I understood what you said, so I'm going to put it in different words for my brain to understand. So if you were, let's say you were 2 no call, no show, chances are you missed a whole month. There's a good chance, maybe not.
but they only missed a month over a 3-month period of time.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be a month. So even if they missed in the same month, then that would be a month's pay that would be prorated. Well, I guess not, because, see, that's really difficult to dive into. Here's why. I'll tell you because first of all, everyone on council is not on every committee. Then there are some who are on every committee. So their efforts in being here would be, it's not even. You can't like get into docking people's pay if you don't have the same level of commitment across the board. So I just think that's a bit punitive in a way that we can't really govern fairly.
It's a slippery slope, guys. We don't know what our future holds. And I
Yeah.
understand it's about people just not showing up, but this is really, is too slippery for me. Because I can't judge people. I cannot.
I don't
judge
know, and I
counsel people.
I hear what she's saying, but I just think
Can't do it 'cause I
we
don't
could
know
not
what the future holds for me
fairly
or anyone else.
deduct pay if everyone's commitment to the committees is not the same. So like me missing 2 when I'm here every Monday is different than someone who's only on 2. And they're, do you see what I'm saying?
Right, well,
So that just, we get into all kind of like rubric and
That's what I'm
just,
saying.
it just would be unfair. And then who governs that? Then we're just,
so what is the
It could get
penalty?
ugly. It
Yeah,
could
so
get-
what would
it
be
could
a
get ugly
different
between
penalty?
us. It could get even uglier between us.
I think that it'll get ugly if you stop showing up and you don't call.
Right.
I think so too. You've already egregiously offended those that you're not calling, not showing 2 times in a
Yeah.
3-month period of
And
time.
that's
You're
why-
already like at the point where somebody needs to talk to you about your commitment level, what's going on. Yeah. So,
That's why I feel like it's a little bit different too, because like, so let's say I was only on 1 committee or 2 committees on one night, and I didn't show up to 2 and yeah, somebody, like, well, whatever, let's say it was so totally crazy, you know, that I was only on one night committee and I didn't show up to two. But I still feel like that's, a no call, no show is way different than just not showing up and letting people know. That's why I don't know if like the level of commitment thing would exactly matter, because it's about the no call, no show. It's not about the not showing up.
It's the disrespect.
Right, it's a disrespect of the no call, no show. But I'm fine if we don't go with the money, that's fine. But I just, what would be another repercussion then that you guys would suggest? Or if you guys have any suggestions?
And we're also on those other 4 or 5 committees that Mike put us on also beyond these 4 committees.
Right, but still, like, what's another suggestion if
There's,
anybody
like,
has one?
Different people on different committees.
Maybe that's why there's no penalty in the rules, because
That we could think of one.
nobody can think of a, nobody
what
can
I'm
think of a
telling
good
you.
penalty.
Yeah, if somebody misses a lot, yeah, there'll be bad blood, but
They
I don't
get
think
the
we
chair
can
with no
start
arm.
penalizing each other.
I thought we were getting new chairs.
No, I was
They're
just kidding.
here,
Nobody
they're
should-
here in the building.
They're in the building?
Yes, that's what I'm told. Not back here where we can sit in them, but,
I mean, honestly, it'll pay off.
Well-
I mean, the next year time, I mean, people keep missing like that. It definitely, there's a,
And usually there's a reason.
I do have a suggestion.
There is a
Ooh,
reason
I wanna
What you
hear it.
got?
Go ahead.
that you're steering
So
that way.
if
Lost
you have 2 no call, no show meetings in a 3-month period of time, then you cannot be a committee chair.
Oh,
There you go.
But what if they already aren't committee chairs?
Then we remove them as the committee
But what
chair.
if they, but I mean, like,
But
if they
they're
already
not.
aren't any committee chairs?
chair and vice chair?
Chair and vice chair, maybe.
yeah, like me, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yet. You will be. We just haven't gotten that far. Because we reshuffle it in January, right?
Right. So, yeah, so, okay, I like that. So no call, no show 2 times within 3-month period. For the next 3-month period, you cannot be a committee chair or co-chair,
No, you are removed
No,
from
you're
that.
removed
But-
from it.
period,
Okay,
forever and
the
ever.
And I'm okay with what you said, but honestly, you say, okay, you didn't show up, we'll take the workload off of you. I
You
mean,
say
it's-
thanks.
thank you. I'll happily
That's why I
attend.
didn't show up.
So I mean, I don't know if that's a punitive,
I think it's punitive. I mean,
it's
it just, it
definitely
really,
a-
it looks bad.
it looks bad. If you're the
And I
type,
have to say, thinking back on when we were choosing roles last year, there was some definite zealousness about who wanted to be the chair of what committee. There was a lot of zealousness, I will say. So I think that's a really good penalty.
okay,
with it.
I'll take your word for it. For me, it sounds like you're taking way work off my plate. Hey, if you say, I mean,
And I
can
bet this
assure
like,
you
"Man,
don't.
maybe I just won't show up." Like, no, that's not gonna happen. I'll call you, like,
That's
hey,
not
Beth,
me."
it's okay. I know that you're busy. I'm just gonna mark you excused. Yeah, no, I think that, I think that that would be, a good. So we're talking about these rules. How are we gonna, do we still have to do a committee of the whole, even though we're kind of talking about them okay, I was hoping not. Okay, so we can just take the changes back to, council and just move to amend or whatever. Okay, all right. So,
like those changes, I would put them in red, or you have it electronically also, right?
yes,
So I would just mark them in the edited, I always have trouble with that word, edited version, and send them out so everybody knows where to look.
okay.
The people that aren't here know where to look. And then we can vote on them.
Okay, here we go. On we go. Why, if you know, Mary Jo, why do we have an order of business? Like, why is that?
It just basically lays out the agenda.
I know, but why? I was just curious. I mean, I don't care about it, but I've just wondered why we had that.
It's like a church bulletin where it's the order of service,
Okay.
or, list of things to discuss at a meeting.
Oh, look, there's quorum. A majority of the members shall constitute a quorum. So if it's a majority out of 7, we need 4, right?
Right.
Yep. So that's why it's not 3. Okay. Okay, what about this, we don't always follow this one, and I'd actually like to talk about this one.
New business.
7.5, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I was just about to say.
No legislative issues may be introduced that are not on the council agenda. And it says all communications must be presented to the clerk of council prior to the meeting.
No, we don't do that.
Well, we're not, I want to talk about it. So, I mean, what do you guys think?
The next thing, sorry, I don't know if you guys read the next sentence too. All motions, resolutions, and ordinances must be presented to the presiding officer, so that would be Mr. Graver, prior to or at the council meeting to be referred to a committee for consideration. So we're not even supposed to present it as new business until we've already presented it to Mr. Graver.
So it shouldn't be on the agenda unless all these protocols are.
Right. It's supposed to go through, I know it's supposed to go through Mr. Graver. He's supposed to refer it to a committee, and then it comes from the committee back to the agenda. Is that what
That's the,
that's how it's supposed to go?
Right, and then if we have a motion from that committee made, or a resolution or an ordinance, then we go to Ms. Dewald, and then she puts it on the agenda where appropriate.
Yeah, but, okay, so
Define the
that's
we,
kind
though.
of,
The we is the committee chair.
Right, exactly. Sorry,
Okay.
that's what I meant.
okay, well,
Because I'm
yeah,
not
it
chair,
doesn't
so I'm not a
actually
we.
say that,
That's
so
why-
that's why I'm trying to, that's why I want to talk about it. Like, it doesn't say that it has to be the committee chair.
I think it does somewhere else.
Okay. And why wouldn't it just say it right here instead of saying it somewhere else?
Well, how
so
about, let's
weird.
find out where it is said, and we'll mention it in here. Say, please
Okay.
refer to, how's that?
That makes sense. Okay.
Where is it?
The only time that it's allowed to be presented randomly during a meeting is during emergencies.
Well, that's, I mean, heck, that's every week.
Right.
Look at 9.5 maybe? Nope, that's not it. I got it turned off, so I don't know how. You hear it again, I'll go turn it back on. I hear yours.
I do not see it.
Well, it's out there. Then if we find it later, at least we know it'll already be in the new business 7.5 thing. You know what I mean?
So what are we, that communications have to come from the
The
committee
chair.
chair? Do we want to add that?
Hang on, you said communications.
Oh,
I think that's a different,
that's a different thing.
you
Okay.
mean legislation.
Legislation?
Legislation.
But Because motions aren't technically legislation, so should we spell out motions, resolutions, and ordinances? Decided on in committee should be presented to the clerk of courts via the committee chair for determination of agenda placement.
And this just says prior to the meeting. It doesn't even have that. I thought it had to be a week priar. but
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't
the
even say
Thursday
that.
before. That's why I'm trying to find it.
Like, yeah, I thought,
Electronically, can you do a search for the word Thursday?
Mhm.
Because I feel like that's when it is. I can't seem to find it flipping through here.
It's on council agenda 7.7.
Thank you.
The clerk of council shall prepare an agenda
is.
for each meeting. The clerk of council shall email the agenda and supporting documents to members, mayor, and city administration by Thursday at 9 p.m. prior to the meeting on Monday. All legislation and agenda items must be sent to the clerk by Wednesday at 10 p.m. in order to be on the agenda on the following Monday. The clerk of council will post the agenda on the city website and supply copies near council chambers. The clerk of council will distribute agenda to members prior to meeting and make available in public attendance. So it doesn't even say there that all legislation and agenda items must be sent to the clerk of court by Wednesday at 10 p.m. prior, blah, 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 by the chair.
Hang on,
Oh.
hang on. Look somewhere else.
Okay. There's only one Thursday thing. Let me look up the word chair.
It might be under committees. Where's committees?
it doesn't really, I'm not seeing that. I do see under 7.9 where it says, the presiding officer shall assign all legislative matters to the appropriate committee. And then it references back to 7.5, which is what we're talking about right now. Do we want to add that, or do we not want to add that?
Yes, I would like to add that. I think that would just clear up a lot of confusion.
So maybe after that first sentence?
Oh, sorry, wait. 10.7, relieving committee from further consideration. Council may, sorry, it's on page 18. Council may, by an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the members, relieve a committee of further consideration of a matter considering blah, 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 as
That's
part of the
not-
committee report. Oh, that's not it, sorry.
Nope.
Nope.
I'm sorry. Keep going with what you're saying.
I don't know, it's, I think it's kind of vague, and I think I would like for it not to be vague.
I agree.
Because the way that, the way it reads, it just says no legislative issues may be introduced that are not on the council agenda. So if it never makes it to the agenda, then it's just, it can't be introduced.
Unless an emergency. So do we want to add it to the part under agenda?
I would think that that would be a good place to add it, like,
Yeah.
just legislation, ordinances, anything else?
Motions?
Motions?
No? Okay.
Motions are on the fly.
Yeah. Just legislation and ordinances, right?
Okay, that's fine.
And if it starts to feel any cool air, let me know.
Must be what, sent to clerk, by committee chair. Or the chair of the committee considering the ordinance.
Who prepared
Yes.
the ordinance?
No, you can't say prepared.
No, the chair doesn't necessarily prepare it, but that committee is the one who considers it. So if something gets referred to budget and finance, then the chair of budget and finance should be the one who sends it to the agenda. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because they should be the only one that knows if it, they are the authority on that committee, and the clerk would have no idea if it was approved to come out of committee unless that chair tells the clerk.
Okay.
But I think we kind of started at the tail end of that. We should also start at the beginning where, I'll use a blanket comment of administration, should first distribute the proposed legislation to the clerk, or nope, the president of council to distribute appropriately to committees,
I think
to the
that's in-
committee.
Wait, so.
I thought all of that was in here. I can't find it, but I thought
Yeah.
it was in here.
Okay,
I'm not
so-
making it up, I swear.
Okay, I don't
Swear
think
I'm
you
not.
are either. I think it was there and, but now it's not. I don't know why it's not.
And I mean, for the most part, I think Mike already abides by. If Mike gets, I mean, he already sends it to, so that's why I'm saying I feel like it's in here somewhere.
It says right here, 7.9, the presiding officer shall assign all legislative matters to the appropriate committee for consideration prior to introduction to the council agenda. Refer to 7.5, and then you go back up to 7.5, and it says it right there, no legislative issue may be introduced that are not on the council agenda. All communications must be presented to the clerk of council prior to the meeting. Blah, 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 blah. Those will all be
Perfect.
presented to the presiding officer prior, and then he will refer it to a committee. So it's already in there. I don't think
Yeah.
we have to add that part. I
You're
think
right.
just adding the last part to 7.5 saying, because I guess that wouldn't be new business anymore. That would be a separate part going under like old business or whatever.
Well, it's new business on the council agenda though, even though,
Sure, 'cause
like,
it's-
so,
Technically,
so,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
it's-
It's not, it wouldn't fall into the new business maybe I missed it. It would be in the first, and be in the legislation section under first reading.
Right, exactly.
So I just mean in the rules, we probably shouldn't
Oh.
put it under 7.5. Because that has to
Oh.
do with new business.
Sorry.
Would we want to make it under like,
Maybe 7.7, because that talks about the council agenda.
yeah, there we go. That works for me. So then, yeah. Yeah. Because that's who's making the council agenda.
Okay. So legislation and let me see, ordinances and resolutions must be sent to the clerk by the committee chair of the committee considering the ordinance or resolution. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that sound, I mean, I know it sounds extremely repetitive, but that's kind of what our issue. I think that'll resolve our little issue. And we can get into a little brouhaha when we bring it up at the next meeting. Okay, let's see. And away we go. Referrals to.
ready for my
Just-
new chair.
I am ready for my new chair as well.
If they're here, I'll unbox them.
Yeah, I think they have to be put together, at least that's what I'm told.
I'll do it.
I'm telling you, I'm 5 minutes away from going to go buy my own chair. I'm just telling you. Do my first my excused tardy, because the next time we have a meeting, if I come in here and this is the chair here, I'm gonna have to go drive right up to Staples or wherever and buy my own chair. It's all good. Okay, so motions, I don't see anything there under section 8. Does anybody see anything? No? I wonder if it's under ordinances and resolutions. We have that here. Let's see. No, doesn't say that there either. Okay. Okay, we're at 7:27, which is close to the end of our scheduled time for our agenda. I think that I'm going to go, just the only other things on our agenda, it's all old business. Process for committee meeting minutes and agenda. Summer session, those are just kind of always floating out there. So if anybody just wants to have some input on any of those issues, please feel free to send me an email. Not a long email, but just an email. Limit your email to, if you read it and it takes longer than 2 minutes to read, then it's too long.
10 words or less. I hear you.
Any new business from anyone?
We're still on rules and laws, right?
Yes, rules and public policy, yes.
Sorry.
I just want to adjourn on time.
Yep.
Okay. I got the action item. I'm supposed to, thought I had an action item. Oh, investigate the generic voicemail. I will do that.
So we decided to investigate the voicemail and along with.
Just, you know how you can call most places and there's like a very generic voicemail. It doesn't go to any one person. It's just like the generic voicemail for that place, and you can leave a voicemail and somebody checks it, I assume.
No, I
'cause-
get it. I'm asking, is that in conjunction with the live?
Yes.
Okay. And why did we not want to do email?
Well, we already have email. We have that, but I don't know if everybody is tech savvy enough to have an email, or
Oh.
as my son and my daughter tell me, they're younger and they say, Mom, you're dating yourself because you have a Yahoo email instead of Gmail. So,
Yeah.
like, huh, okay, well, I guess I am.
Hotmail.
My friend still has.
Wow.
Never changed that. I don't know
AOL.
what to do.
I know some people with AOL as well, and I'm like, well, so
Still
I,
works the same.
I
I,
definitely have
yeah,
email.
so I just, that's all I would say about that. Okay, so that is my action item.
So can I just ask you, like, you use the term investigate. Can we just ask for one?
Yeah, I guess we can. I'll ask for one. Yes, I'll ask. How about that?
And then we'll all take turns, we'll just rotate?
Yep, that makes sense. I think that will be the
Manning
easiest
it.
thing. Nobody seems to have problem doing work, which is great. So, yeah, we'll just take turns. Sounds easy enough, right?
Well, a lot of voicemail systems now even send out the text-to-speech.
Oh, right, so we don't even have to.
So we might
right.
even be able to get it via email, and then it probably would not be under your 2-minute limit, but
We
Your
can
10
limit,
word limit.
we can limit the time on voicemails. I know that because I limit the time on my voicemails on my cell phone. You
All right.
have If you can't get it out in 2 minutes, you know, God love you. Okay, anything else that anybody wants to add before we adjourn? Okay, so I am adjourning the Rules and Public Policy meeting at 7:30 PM. Okay, does anyone need to take a brief break?
Yes.
Okay. And we will start our Public Safety Committee meeting. Again, very behind on meeting minutes. I will catch them up because we've had some very long meetings and, you know, after a while, I just kind of gave up on typing. So I will get them caught up by our next meeting and present them to everyone for review before the meeting so that you, if you have any objections, you can object to the minutes. And then on our agenda today is Chief Ryan Schrand, the North College Hill Police Department. Welcome, Chief Schrand. And I just put patrol policies / procedures, but whatever, I will let you take it away.
Madam Chair, if I could just for a moment.
2 minutes.
Yes.
Just kidding. I'm joking.
No, thank you. I just wanted to kind of open up and kind of introduce why Chief Schrand is here tonight, and just as just to let everyone know, there were some inquiries that were made regarding the police department, and so I had reached out to Chief Schrand and I said that basically, you know, it would be a good idea to come to the Public Safety Committee so that people, the members of council, could get actually a better understanding of where we are, what our current situation is, and perhaps some of the rationale behind why, or the strategies that Chief has employed for the police department during this particular time. So with that said, then, and I will bring up Chief Schrand, and he does have a slideshow which I will assist with.
Thank you for having me here tonight. I appreciate it. I always like coming out here and being able to talk. And there's no way I'll get it done under 2 minutes, so I'll apologize ahead of time, Erica.
She said 2 minutes.
2 minutes. If you know me at all, you know I can't speak for just 2 minutes. You give me a microphone and a podium, and it just goes. I'm like Matt Miller Novak that way. So. I put together a little PowerPoint based off the things that I heard that everybody wanted to talk about. And what I was trying to do here is to kind of shine some light in some ways on the situation of what basically where the police department is at right now. Okay. And so the second slide, what I did is I put together a little pie chart here and the categories that we track for our overtime. Okay, I put that together because I know that this committee, as well as council as a whole, has been getting some of the spreadsheets to show and track the overtime. And I know it's important that we track that, but I think it's also just as important for you folks to see what it is that I'm looking at and how I track it in our system.
I have a question already, if you don't mind. So where it says court time, the third down.
Mhm.
So Mayor's Court has been closed during almost all of COVID. So is this Hamilton County court time?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So when you look at it, here, you'll see here Mayor's Court security in there. That is just for our officers to hold and have security there for Mayor's Court. Okay, which is the only other thing that we really provide for Mayor's Court as far as the officers go. Okay, when you're looking at court time, we're looking strictly at court time for downtown Hamilton County juvenile. Okay, and the things that we go that way.
And how do you track who is going where and when? How do you kind of keep your eye on people? Make sure they're not saying, oh, I went down to this court time and it took X amount of time. How do you kind of make sure people are kind of following the rules and not sort of fibbing?
So what happens is in Hamilton County, they get served with a subpoena that they have to be at this court case, either in juvenile or in municipal court or in felony court, okay, grand jury or however it goes. By contract, anytime they go down to court on their time off, so if you work second shift or you work third shift and that's naturally your time off and you have to be down at court at 9 o'clock, you get paid 3 hours automatically for going and showing up. Okay, that's pretty much standard, but that's what's in our union contract.
Is that 3 minimum or 3 total?
That's 3 minimum. Anything over 3 hours, they get paid hour for hour that they're there. So if they're there all day for like an 8-hour trial, then they get the 8 hours for that time that they're there.
I'm having a hard, can you send that to me because I'm having a hard time reading it? What does the second line even say, late?
Yeah, late arrest or detailed.
I was just gonna ask if you
I
could
only have-
email
I have
us.
one.
No,
I can email it to you. I only have
Okay.
one printed out, but if
oh, that's fine. If you can just email us a copy, that would be great.
Yes, yes.
What is phone, it's like halfway down, phone communication, I think it
Phone
says?
consultations.
Oh, okay.
So it's also in the contract that it says anybody who is off duty gets a phone call for something that they can put in 0.25 of an hour for a phone consultation. So for example, and here I've pretty much in my lifetime I have never put in, it's 1.5 hours for phone consultations. Okay, the city has a department cell phone for me. So I always told them if they went and did that, I will never put in for phone consultations. That's not me, I'm salary. But for example, my lieutenants or my corporals, if they get a phone consultation, meaning they're off, they're sitting at home with their family and they get a phone call, hey, LT, we just had this shooting, or we just had this incident. What do I do? Who do I call out next? Where do I go from here? We had somebody call in sick. You're the scheduling officer. I need you to do this. And they handle that. They put in for that time, if you would, for that phone consultation, for being available and from home. And that is also that is in what's in their FOP union contract as well.
And is this monthly or is this?
No, this is year-to-date total as of right now.
So how do you, like, not just with the court, but overall, how do you track that people are, I mean, I'm not assuming that people are lying, but I'm sure that it has happened before. How do you track that people are actually doing the time that they're claiming for overtime?
Okay, so, and we have a scheduling software system that is geared towards first responders, okay? Its name is Planet, that's what we call it, and its title, it's basically Planet Police, and it is an online software where they go in, they have to clock in to that software, they also have to submit their overtime. And when they submit their overtime, it gets approved by myself or one of my lieutenants before we submit it for payroll. And on every one of those, they have to give me the case number for the court hearing, or they have to give me the reason for the overtime, if you would.
So you or Mr. Petroselli are the ones who are approving it?
Yes,
Okay.
So who approves Frank's?
I do.
And is this all retroactive? So they've already worked it?
Yes. So when they already work it and they go to court, or they have a late detail or a late arrest, and that's what the second category is, the late arrest or the late details. Okay? So for example, if I am an officer and I schedule to get off at 4 o'clock, and at 3:50, before second shift has come in, we get an auto accident with injuries. We're not going to stack that. We're not going to let that go. I go to that auto accident with injuries. And if it takes me 45 minutes or an hour to handle that auto accident, come back and do the report, then unfortunately I've had to stay over for that 45 minutes, and then they have to put in for that time.
So
Same-
then how is overtime decided? How is it decided who gets what overtime and who gets what money? Because obviously, I mean, you could make a lot of money from this overtime. How is it decided who gets called in for this?
So and what I'll do is I'll skip ahead to a couple slides, and the thing is and that's where it's so complicated, because on certain things, I can only give them the guidelines for the late arrest or the late details. If I have two people working and we get a shooting or we get something on the late arrest, you have to go to that, okay? So they're going, and it's decided by who's there on
Right, who's
duty
there.
when they get the shift,
Right.
okay? The court time is decided based on the subpoenas and what we get. So if I'm an officer out working the road, I handle a detail, I make an arrest, and I get subpoenaed to court because I was the officer that made that arrest, then I'm the one who has to go to court on that case. Okay? So me as the chief, I don't get, in some of these categories, I don't have that luxury where I get to decide.
Right, and that
The-
makes sense. I more mean the stuff that is up to you, you know,
The
The scheduled overtime.
right,
right,
the
right.
scheduled overtime,
The
the
schedule
parades,
overtime and the really what we're talking about there is the shift coverage, okay? And in the shift coverage, what we've generally done is we've done it by seniority. That was something that they wanted to put in the contract, where by seniority, I put a page out and say, okay, I don't have anybody to cover these shifts. I put the page out, and that's just, it's like a text message blast to all of our employees. Hey, I have this open shift that needs to be done.
So now that there are 3 new hires, is it reasonable for us and the rest of the taxpayers to expect less overtime, basically, for covered shifts?
I wish, but not yet.
And why is that?
Because when we have 5 officers that were down, okay? We had 5 that have left. I have replaced 2. Okay?
Okay.
We've replaced 2 full-time. One is still in the pipeline. We hired him before all of that, and he's still part-time. So officially, we were down 5 full-time officers. We're down almost 8 part-time officers. Okay? The problem is, and this is where it comes in that you need to understand and why I wanted to come here and explain this to you, is in our business and law enforcement, we hire them out of the academy, but that doesn't mean they're ready to go. If we were in a normal business setting, we would have a small amount of training time, and when we hired somebody full-time, you might be ready to go within a week, within a couple weeks, and we're getting use out of you on the schedule. The problem that we have is our field training program for the officers is set up off of best practices from across the country, and it takes 4 to 6 months to get through that field training program. And so what I've said in the past to council and to folks when I come here is that our resources, and most of our resources are our officers, our resources really are where I spend most of my time, and our greatest resources are our officers because we have money, time, everything invested in them. And so when they leave, whether it's just on retirement or going other places or whatever, it takes a long time for us to truly replace them. So even though we swore in the 2 new officers, and I'm really excited about what they can do, they don't just hit the pavement running, and we're just not going to put them in a cruiser and say, here's a set of keys, here's a map, good luck, right? I hope you know how to do all of the things, okay? What we do is we have a field training program that's broken into 5 phases and a list of tasks in each one of those phases. And you do not move on in that until you show proficiency in that. So for example, one of those tasks is how to handle a domestic violence situation. You need to know about the Ohio Revised Code. You need to know how to do the arrest paperwork. You need to know that we have a program with Divert that was set up for women helping women. And those are all things that they don't necessarily get in the academy, that we do get them on the job training, but they are not considered part of manpower for helping me out for the overtime to cover the minimum staffing of the 2 per shift until they're out of field training, and that takes time, unfortunately.
Is this training continued for veteran officers, so officers that might have not, like, I know Frank Petroselli's been on the force for a long time. Let's say when he joined, there wasn't the women helping women training. Is he getting that, not specifically him, people like him or who have been on the force for as long as him, getting the training that these new officers are getting?
So whenever we institute a new program, the general protocol is that we institute the new program and everybody in the department gets the training on that new program that we have. Okay? And then we update it in the field training manual so that everybody new coming in then gets updated on it so that you're touching everybody in the department that way.
Okay, thank you.
We can go to the next. Okay. And so I put this slide because what I was trying to tell you here, and I think we've already explained it some, is that there's, in all of those categories, I think that's what I've been trying to explain, and maybe I haven't been doing such a great job of it over the years, is in my opinion, based on best practices, in all the categories that we track that they have to put in for the overtime for, there's certain things that I have control over, certain things that I don't necessarily have some control over. Okay? And that's where I want to be very transparent to say, when we're looking at this, I want us to be able to look at apples to apples and oranges to oranges. Okay? So for example, the categories that I can have an impact upon right away is potentially the training, the step. The step is it's our version. It's basically a traffic detail where they could come in, they can run overtime, or they can sign up for the overtime. They could run basically a 4-hour block, sign in as a traffic car, take a cruiser out and do nothing but write traffic tickets. Okay?
Does anybody ever do that?
Well, what has happened is with COVID last year and everything, I discontinued that STEP program because we didn't have the money and I didn't want them out doing that with everything. So when we've brought it back, we brought it back with limited hours so I could try to control that because I knew the overtime and what was coming. Okay, so currently we only have a couple of officers who do that. And the standard is we want them to go out and make contacts. Their idea is that we want them to try to average about 1 ticket an hour to be able to justify their.
So then are the police officers that are on duty not doing any like cruising or any traffic or any ticket writing at all then?
They are, and just bear with me because I'm going to
Okay.
I'm going to explain that in the next slide.
Okay.
Okay. And so in this, all of these from community outreach to parades and special events, Hamilton County SCAT, that's actually, we have one officer who's on the arson task force. So when there's an arson or suspected arson fire somewhere in the county, that's the group that he's on based on his specialized training. So he gets called out and he can go from anywhere in the county to go help investigate that and work on that. And that's just the one. That's the one thing that he's decided to be a part of. It's kind of like we have a mutual aid agreement with many different jurisdictions. So with our drug task force, you might see that the drug task force is made up of one officer for a couple officers from Springfield Township, an officer from Mount Healthy, or an officer from here. We all kind of work together for those specialized units. So we only have one officer in that specialized unit. And so when
They
you
still paid out of the city coffers for that? Or is there special pay that, is there any kind of reciprocal pay coming from Hamilton County for that kind of
There's
service?
there is no, it's still coming out of North College Hill. And that's kind of the way it goes, because just like Hamilton County SWAT team, for example, the Hamilton County Police Association SWAT team, it's made up of members of just about every jurisdiction in Hamilton County except for the city of Cincinnati. So when North College Hill has a barricaded subject or a SWAT call out that way, we usually have, unfortunately, one of those incidents usually a year. Something like that if we were paying all of that, that would cost us thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in overtime. Each individual agency that puts somebody on that team covers their one officer that's assigned to that team. In years past, we've had the money to do that. I was one of those that was luckily chosen. I spent almost 5 years on Hamilton County SWAT team, donated a lot of time to that. And doing that program, we used to have folks on the dive team. We've had people on the Joint Terrorism Task Force, different things like that. All of that is paid out of North College Hill's money for just that officer that goes to that specialized unit, if you would. Over the last years, we just haven't had the ability to do that. So I pulled everybody back. That's the one officer that I just haven't pulled back from those specialized units. And my thought process is based on all the different fires, all the different things that we've had. He primarily tries to work North College Hill cases. And they were really hurting for people that were could bridge the gap, that had police powers, but also knew enough about firefighting and the arson that they could go in after a fire when it wasn't made to be structurally sound to be able to do that. And again, that's why that is in that category of things that I could have an impact upon. Okay, whereas it's a judgment call, but if we have the money and we have the resources, everybody across the county that can send somebody to those so that those teams have capable and qualified people so that we all work together so that we can get things done. If that makes sense. And then on the other side, the categories that I necessarily don't have or can't have either an impact on or, in my opinion, as much of an impact on are the things like the court time, the late arrests, mayor's court security, holiday pay, investigations, and critical incidents. Okay? I wish I could control that a little bit better. We've looked at it. We've tried over the years. I know that when I first started as chief, one of the things that we did, and I would just be honest because that's the way I've been working with the system, we thought it was better when the start of the heroin epidemic started to send everybody downtown, and we were not sending them to mayor's court. The thought process behind that was mayor's court does not have probation, so if we send these people down, they're more likely to get on probation and they're more likely to get drug treatment that we don't have access to here in our small mayor's court. So we thought we were doing what we thought we were doing was right for the community, but what we found is that every time I sent one of those cases downtown, it was almost like a $500 swing because of the 3 hours of court time, me having to pay for parking while they're down there. Any case that's in Hamilton County on any kind of drugs needs to be tested by the lab, Everybody knows that the lab and Dr. Samarco got a brand new beautiful lab that they have to pay for somehow. So those prices and the drug fees have gone up. So all of those things cost us money. So by the time we were looking at it, it was about a $500 swing.
So you're now pulling it back to our.
So we're pulling it back, and everything like that goes to mayor's court, which is also, when we look at what mayor's court brings in, okay, there's also the other things that are associated with it that we have to talk about. That exactly. How much it saves us in the court time when we're looking at those things.
So since we're talking about mayor's court, if you don't mind, because I know that mayor's court was closed during COVID. So where are you guys now with catching up on cases from mayor's court? How is catching up on cases in mayor's court going? Basically, where are you guys?
We started about 2 or 3 weeks ago catching up on the thousands of cases backlog.
So far, how far back are you guys right now?
We're probably a little over 1,500 cases.
Okay. I mean, is that, when can people expect, because like you said, there's money in mayor's court, of course, but more importantly, there are people who are getting the proper legal repercussions in mayor court. So when can people expect kind of the catch-up to come around?
It's a tough question, so I'll try to answer it. Here's where we're at. All the ones that we have that are outstanding. During COVID time, we tried to do what we call phone court. So if we had a phone number for somebody who was cited to court or arrested and needed to be summoned to court, we would call them, and we would set up a phone call and try to work the stuff out and have court via phone that way, okay? The problem came in is if they didn't have a valid phone number, if they didn't answer or we didn't have a way to contact them, the Supreme Court said while all that was going on, according to our prosecutor and magistrate, we could not take action on that. We had to set those aside. So we set all of those aside, and we didn't put warrants out on those people. We didn't do anything because we weren't physically holding court.
Right.
So now that we are physically holding court, we have to find a way to get back in touch with those people. And obviously a phone number is not it, okay? So we're sending out roughly 75 to 100 letters was what we started with a week, saying you need to come in, here's the letter and the address, and we're trying to sort out, okay, how many of those letters are we getting returned back? How many are we actually getting people to come into court? And it's about a 50-50 mix. 50% of them we're getting back that no return address, they won't sign for it, nothing like that. But we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do. About 50% are either coming in to pay out when they realize that we're going to be back in full swing, or they're coming to court and taking care of that, okay? Why we're doing only 75 to 100 each time is because now that we've opened things up, we still have our regular docket.
Right.
And we don't know how many are truly going to show up. So what we don't want to do is open the doors and then suddenly have 400 or 500 people in one night and have another problem that way. So we're trying to just kind of do it a little by little to try to catch back up. I think the best saying I could have was, my old boss used to always say, when the problem is as big as an elephant, how do you eat an elephant? And the idea is just one bite at a time. So that's kind of what we're doing.
Have you taken into consideration another court night? Help catch up?
We have. And I'll be honest, right now, we are still kind of in limbo because we are still without a mayor's court clerk. So right now I have several people doing multiple jobs at this point.
So those thousands of cases have just accumulated just over COVID?
Over the last year and something, yeah.
Over the last year, so over the time of COVID when mayor's court was closed?
Yes.
Those are the only time, so you guys were caught up and then COVID hit and then you got backed up?
Yes.
Okay.
So with these, I think holiday pay, when they work holidays, they have to work shift work. So when they work Christmas, when they work, I have limited impact upon those. I try on certain holidays to go down to minimum staffing levels, to be honest. The holidays that I don't necessarily think that we're busy based on my history here, I try to bring them down to minimum staffing levels. I still have to provide for the residents of the city, which we're going to always do. But at the same time, if I can give some of the officers a break and they want a day off on Christmas or something like that, we do so. My general rule of thumb is, for us, I do not let anybody off on, and do not grant any vacation time or any of those requests on 4th of July or Halloween anymore. Okay? And that's just based on my history here, because in the 16 years I've been here, those are our two busiest holidays.
What about, no problems on New Year's Eve?
New Year's Eve, we do have some problems, but I don't make it general across the board. I just say for third shift, second and third shift, you guys are fine. On day shift, I really don't have a problem on New Year's Eve. And in their contract, New Year's Day is actually the holiday. So I have a little bit more flexibility there, if that makes sense, right? And so I try to be, when I say that, what I'm saying is that when I'm universal across the board, to black it out. And on New Year's, I don't universally black it out across the board to say nobody can have a day off, because day shift is kind of different when it comes to that holiday, if that makes sense. But 4th of July, based on everything that we've seen, is pretty much always busy. Halloween is pretty much always busy as well, between everything from day shift and the parking of the cars and dealing with everything, getting everything ready. Second shift, that's always been my worst nightmare, is having a kid struck by a car on Halloween, and all the kids that are out and all the cars that are moving so fast, putting them out there, and then all the other activities that go on with the costumes and the mask and things after the sun goes down. Okay, so again, those are the things when I say I can't, or I just have limited impact upon. Over my career or my history, I've learned that I can have a small impact upon, but I'm never going to be able to completely shut it off. There's just the nature of the beast sometimes is that in law enforcement profession, most departments across the nation average about somewhere 10% of their overtime. Normally, we're well under that range. This year, with the way things are going and having to replace people and the things that way, I don't know that I'm going to be able to make that same promise. Sir? Okay. Staffing levels. What we were talking about before in your patrol. We do have patrol. We do ask them to go out and patrol. It is part of their job. But what I want you to understand, too, in the day of the life of a police officer, is they have many things that they need to do. So we break it down into two categories. We break it down into their reactionary time versus their discretionary or their proactive time. Okay? In their reactionary time, they have their calls for service. They have the time that they're spent following up on the things and the calls that they've handled, as well as their alternate duty assignments. Okay? Alternate duty assignments are all kinds of things from, I have one full-time officer who's dedicated to making sure that everything in the cars, maintenance-wise, is taken care of. So that person, aside from their regular duties, their time also has to be spent making sure that the cars get the oil changes, the cars have, the tires that they need to provide, all the lights are working, all the things that are stored in the back of the cruiser are there. If that makes sense. And that's just one ADA or alternate duty assignment that we have.
Really quick, sorry, since you mentioned the cruisers and the cars. So I know that a lot of police departments will buy their cars kind of like off and on, like every other few years or so or however. And I know North Cultural doesn't do that. And I know we're coming up on having to buy a bunch of new cruisers. So, I mean, what's your plan with that? Are you going to start doing the every other? Are you going to try to? What's your...
We are in talks now for what we're going to look at. I think there's a lot of things on the table. I know there's some meetings that are going to transpire over the next couple of months to talk about the benefits of potentially leasing and doing lease option to buys, which is what a lot of departments have gone to. And I think there's a lot of things that way that make sense. Yeah. There's a lot of things that need to be looked at in that manner. And I know that those meetings have already been scheduled. I know that The city administrator is on top of that, and we're going to continue to go down that path to try to make the best options that we can for us. But it hasn't been easy because we haven't had a new cruiser in 3 years, at least, which means that our cruisers that we have, even the oldest one in the fleet is a 2015, which wouldn't seem like a whole lot, but 70 to 80, 90,000 miles on a police cruiser is a lot of miles on a police cruiser when you consider the driving that it has to do, because it's not the everyday normal driving. So there's a lot of options that go into it. I think there's a reason why we've spent so much money, and that is it, in the vehicle maintenance budget, because the cars are older and things keep happening to them. We have a lot of money in that. And I think that's one of the things that we're looking at from the lease option too, is if you're constantly leasing a car and the car is no more than 3 or 4 years old, everything seems to be under warranty except for the tires and the brakes, which are stuff that we can do in-house. So all I can tell you from that aspect is we are looking at it, and there will be lots of meetings over the next couple months to talk about what our game plan is going forward so that we can bring a good proposal to you when it comes budget time.
Gotcha. You said that the driving, obviously I know it's not like normal driving, and I obviously wouldn't want a police cruiser to have, you know, like my CRV with 250,000 miles that could break down any moment. Obviously I don't want that, but what exactly do you mean you can't have over a certain amount because of specific type of driving?
So here's what I mean by that, and that's a very good question. When I take the cars into Woody Sander Ford, who's our mechanics, and that's who we use, when he looks at me and he tells me that our car may have 50 or 60,000 miles, but in idle time, that car has roughly what's equivalent to 300,000 or 400,000 miles on it in idle time on the engine, and that the engine might not last very much longer, those are the kind of things that I mean, okay? The cars that we drive, they are very rough on the transmissions. I'm sorry, it's just a fact. When they go from sitting in a parking lot looking at a speeder or sitting up on the highway and you get the LiDAR out and you clock a car going 90 miles an hour, you jump in the car, you slam it and drive, and you floor it to go from 0 to 90 to catch up with that car right away, that wreaks havoc on the engine and it wreaks havoc on the transmission. And so what generally the rule of thumb is if it's, 90, 80, 100,000 miles on a police cruiser, it's more equivalent to a lot more wear and tear on the engine, the transmission, and those critical components that are inside that car. Next, sir, please. Thank you. I've already explained it, but I'll put it up here and touch on it for a second. We had two that have left or are going to be leaving due to retirement. Okay, and then on top of that, it was kind of out of the blue, but we've had at least 3 to 4 that have left, and I'm just talking full time since then. So the problem is what we're facing at this point is when you have a department of 17 full-time officers and suddenly you're down 5, and it takes, even once you have them hired, 4 to 6 months to get them trained. We were hit with an extraordinary circumstance that we're going to be trying to get ourselves out of for a little while. Okay?
I see that you have no, like, the school resource officer. I thought that the school resource officer was through a separate entity. I thought they got their own resource officer separate of you guys.
So in years past, they used to do that. They have contracted with us to provide the school resource officer.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it equates out to, it's a 75-25 split when it comes to just the salary, is what it comes. So the school pays 75% of the salary, the city pays 25% of the salary. But that also doesn't include benefits. Okay? And so that's one of the things that I've said over the years when we look at it, that based on timing, what happened was the police levy came into effect, And the plan was to have somewhere between $25,000 and $35,000 a year for capital improvement money from the police levy to go towards the police department to be able to provide things like police cruisers and to provide things like new tasers and new less lethal equipment and training and things like that. What ended up happening, we had the bomb threats from the security officers that were there to help the school, that we made those arrests, and the school very quickly and swiftly got rid of that and said, we will not go backwards to having our own private security. We want to contract with the police department. We went with the industry standard of the 75-25 split for the salaries, but that had to come from somewhere. So it came from the levy money, which ate into all of our capital, which is where we're in the position that we're in. Okay? And so it's important to know that, because I don't want anybody to think that what I'm standing up here saying is that I disagree with the school resource officer program or I think it was a bad move, because obviously I don't. The school is one of our biggest employers in the city. The school has probably the biggest population on a normal day, okay? And in anything that I believe that we can do to help the school system become successful and to continue to be successful, I think we're utilizing our resources in the best manner possible. So I believe in the school resource officer program. I really want the school resource officer program to work, but what I am saying is that took away a lot of our 5 and 6 year, 10-year plan of what we were going to do to replace cruisers, to replace tasers, to replace the equipment that we needed, which definitely put us in a bind. And so that's also something to think about moving forward. And here we are in a bind this year, and that's one of the things that I'm telling you is that at this point, if I don't have enough to cover the road, and you've seen the overtime numbers and shift coverage, because by contract I have to provide a minimum of 2 officers a shift, and if I don't have 2 officers a shift, I don't have a choice. By contract, I have to get somebody in here on overtime. So I've already notified the school. I have 1 officer that's trained, ready to go right now. I can't put them in the school. They have to be out on the road until everybody gets hired and trained, and then you can go back to having your SRO. Okay? I started out with 2 detectives. They have plenty of work to keep them busy, unfortunately, between the sexual assaults, the homicides, the shootings, stabbings, the things that they need to work. But at this point in time, I'm in a situation where I have to go over with my needs versus my wants. Okay? So I have pulled 1 detective out of that division and put him back on the road to work to try to help stop some of the hemorrhaging, if you would, of the overtime on the shifts.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Are you, so the reason that there's so many people missing, is that more because of the money part of it, or is that more because people aren't applying? Is that you're not finding eligible applicants?
So when we started this year off, starting January 1st, I knew that I was going to have 2 retirements at some point this year. Okay? I did not realize that I would have 2 officers leave to go to other departments for more money. At the same time, we ran into an issue with one, and he decided to resign and go on to another department. Okay? And then there was at least 1 part-timer that we had in field training that decided this was not the right fit for her, and she was going to move on, and then we lost another part-timer. So we have been dealt some serious blows along those ways, okay? And so we knew we had to do something. At the same time, because we're a city, I have to work with civil service to get all the steps in the process completed, okay? This go round, I have, and he's been wonderful to help out, I invited the city administrator to come in and be a part of that process so that he could also explain to council and everybody else all the steps and all the hurdles that I have to jump through to get these things done. Okay? Because I have to serve several different people in all these steps, and there's a lot of things that have to go through. So for example, when there's an opening like that, I have roughly 45 days, according to the civil service paperwork, to get that test done. Normally, that falls on myself, or like in this case of the fire department, Chief Fells, to make up the test or to go and buy the test. In this case, I did not want to be making up the test, so we went and purchased a pre-done test and put the things out there, okay? So far, what we got was, out of the month and a half or so of running the ads in the paper, putting out the National Testing Network and the things that way, we got 33 applicants. There's a lot of reasons for that. One, because of just the financing. We, like many of their jurisdictions, we put out and have to hire people that have already gone through the academy. So they have to be either put themselves through the police academy, or they have to have already started the academy and paying for it on their own. City of Cincinnati, Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, for example, they're large enough, they have a budget, and they have their own police academy. So for example, City of Cincinnati, when you get hired and you take their civil service exam, they hire you and you go through their police academy, and they pay you $45,000 last time I checked on their website for their cadet status. So you're a full-time officer, you're getting paid $45,000, and they're paying you benefits, and you're going through the police academy with them for 1 year. Okay? The difference then is, for ours, we're trying to go through either Great Oaks, Butler Tech, or UC Claremont, which are the three that are local around us. Those places charge the individual who wants to be a police officer and go through the academy somewhere around $6,000 to $9,000, depending.
So of those 33 applicants, how many of them have you interviewed? About?
We have interviewed all but 7, which we go back to. They ranked in an order on their scores on the test that gets sent over to civil service, and I say I'm ready to interview more. Then civil service sends me the names of who I can interview based on their scores. We have interviewed all but 7, and I think we have those interviews. We have interviews scheduled for Wednesday and Friday of this week as well to go back through.
So kind of a little bit switching topics. How many applicants, because obviously we have an all-white police force and we live in a majority black community. How many of those applicants have been people of color, black people, minorities? How many of those applicants have been in that group?
3.
Okay, and you interviewed those 3 people?
Yes.
And you didn't feel comfortable hiring them for obviously other reasons, I hope?
No, we still have several still in the pipeline, but
Okay.
even after they go through interviews. So our system this way is set up with civil service that they have to take the test and register for the test with the National Testing Network. With that, we tell them that they have to turn in an application to the police department, because without that, we don't have a way to contact them back.
Right.
Okay? So although we've had plenty who have taken the test online, not everybody has followed the directions. So there's probably about 4 in the first round that I remember that we tried to set up interviews with, but they never followed the directions. So we never had contact information to contact them and set up the interviews. Out of that, when we did set up interviews that I'm aware of, and Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there 2 or 3 that no called, no showed to interviews, at least?
Okay.
Okay. Out of those that we interviewed,
Are you speaking to only minority candidates, or just?
no, just
Okay.
everybody,
Okay.
everybody, yes. So what we did was the directions were put out, they have to sign up, they have to take the written test. The written test is scored, those written scores go to civil service. Okay? The applicants turn in an application to us, so we have name, phone number, information on how to contact them back. Okay? Then we've set up a plan where there's what we call panel interviews.
Wait, I'm sorry. So they take the civil test, right?
Yes.
And where does that administered?
That was actually online, and that's why we paid for the test to be online, because when we started this process back in November, we weren't feeling comfortable with doing the old-fashioned bring everybody in and sit them in one room and do it. So we went with the online, where this company proctored the test and did it that way.
Why not attach the application to the civil test? Because personally, I've applied for City of Cincinnati, in my career path. Application and civil test are right there together. Also Cincinnati Public Schools, also for certain positions within, Cincinnati Children's Hospital, when you work for like, their, like outskirt nonprofit ones, things that are in that it's,
We put the link where they could actually do it online and they could email it to us, and we still didn't get everybody who.
but put it together. There's no like extra step for them. I mean, it just makes the application process user-friendly and condensed. And I know maybe the logic behind that for you might be people who follow directions, but people's technical skills today are just at different levels. So in your hiring process, you want to get as many applicants as possible. And I work in HR, you want to condense it so that it's easy for people to access. This is just a thought.
I 100% agree, and I will tell you that we did have that conversation. With civil service and how the things were going to be, and this is just what I was dealt, if you would, with out of that conversation.
Because if you have 33 applicants, first of all, that's a very small number of applicants for a very robust position. And then of those, you have a significant decrease in minorities. Something's wrong with the application process. We need to fix that to get more. I mean, even if it's just making it more accessible. It's not it can't just be that other communities pay more. There are definitely people out there who want to work in this area.
So I agree with you. And I have been working on, and the city administrator knows, we've been working on a project to try to bridge the gap, if you would, that way, to be able to do that. It still comes down to, in a lot of ways, what I was alluding to before, that, for example, the city of Cincinnati, when they do their civil service test, they don't have to be certified. So anybody can go and apply and take the test. We, like the 44 other, or the 34, I think it's 34, the 34 other municipalities in Hamilton County besides the city of Cincinnati and the sheriff's office, we don't have that luxury. We can't afford to pay for them to go through the academy. And so in a lot of ways, what that means also for the candidates is there is close to a $52,000, $53,000 swing to go towards the city of Cincinnati when you're not already certified versus paying to go to one of the other academies, which is where we have to recruit from.
I'm sorry, I think
So
that.
sorry.
So
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say, I think that's besides the point of what she was talking about. She's talking about the
Truth.
application. Go ahead and you go.
so
Truth. In addition, you said UC, the Blue, I know it was White Oak, and then what were the other schools that you listed?
so UC Claremont County,
Mm-hmm.
Great Oaks,
Mm-hmm.
and Butler Tech.
Okay. And of those three schools, what is the graduating rate from each of them?
So they are severely down from what they used to be, which means they're lucky right now if they can get a class of 30 to go through every 6 months. And what I'm being told by the academy commanders is out of that 30 or so, that there's usually about 10 that aren't spoken for already, meaning that somebody didn't already hire them and put them through and pay for them to go through, which comes back around to our money and the recruiting.
So then you're saying Cincinnati, they're sending candidates as through their own academy.
Yes.
Then other people are recruiting people even before they go to school and then paying them to go
Through the academy, yes.
And so then you're saying you have 3 places in which they graduate from,
Mm-hmm.
and roughly 10 are not spoken for. So those are the 30 that we're getting residually.
Right. And we're also competing with, right now, you have Colerain Township hiring, Springfield Township hiring, Mount Healthy hiring, you have Delhi, you have all of these other agencies that I know of that have, Harrison just put out theirs that they're hiring, that are also hiring candidates. And they're all fighting from that same pool. And those are just from the 34 other municipalities within Hamilton County. As I said, one is UC Claremont, so all the Claremont County agencies go and attack those and recruit from those same places. One is Butler Tech, which is out in Butler County, who Butler County also recruits from those. So when you're looking at it, we have a very small pool of candidates based on just our budgeting, our financing that we're going after. And we're going after them with, in my opinion, two hands tied behind our back.
Truth, which is why the recruiting process needs to be more simplified.
Right, I don't think you
more
ever
robust.
answered her original question about combining the test with the application. Have you guys looked into doing that? Is that something you have control in? Because I don't think you ever really answered her.
He said that, I think you did, you said that you guys were working on it, you and the city administrator.
You are?
right?
Okay.
And I was trying to be nice, saying that I brought a lot of these things up, but I also get told by civil service what they want and what they'll accept, and this is what's going to be out.
Because I think the human resources and the recruiting process is changing a lot. And that sounds like a very like antiquated recruiting thing that you're putting out there to disconnect the application with the civil service test. And it makes it more difficult, as though we're like, if you're saying, hey, a lot of these people, they're paying for them to go through the academy, then City of Cincinnati, they have their own academy, they're putting out a more robust recruiting process. And then we're discombobulating our civil service test with our application, and then we're eliminating people because they didn't follow the direction. We need to make it more simplified. It does not necessarily mean that they're not a good candidate, and I know that's a really, that's a thought process. Well, if they don't dot every I and cross every T, then that makes them not a good candidate when we're putting it in the hands of technology and people are having to like understand on their own, admission and recognizant. It just makes it more difficult when we don't have to do that. We can simplify that layer, and then it just seems like it's another setback as opposed to being inviting to come and apply. And it's a part of our recruiting process that we need to make sure that it's robust, especially when you have other communities that are really, really competing and
Right.
putting people through programs.
And I don't disagree, and that's something that I welcome more conversations about, because I've been passionate about that for a long time. And Ron can tell you, we've had plenty of meetings with Pastor King about trying to set up scholarships, trying to do some way to get to that. But the bottom line always keeps coming around to, every time I come around, I'm presented with a lot of hurdles. And I'm letting you know a lot of those hurdles that I'm up against. A lot of it also comes back to financing. I don't have a recruiting budget. I wish that I did.
But something
'Cause
like putting the application with the
test.
test is very, very simple.
Okay,
that
so
not
I know this is very important, but we're getting caught in the weeds on this particular issue. And I'm familiar with Chief Schran's slideshow, so I'm sure there's probably 30 more slides we haven't gotten through. No? Okay. Oh, well, that's different.
I tried. Thank you.
So if we can, so we'll certainly invite him back. I don't want to,
Well,
but I just don't.
Just because that concern, the reason that I wanted to just kind of delve into that, because what you're saying is we're not hiring people, they're not available, so then they have to go through this 4 to 6 month training process, which then is leading to more overtime. It's all important and relative to fixing
Yeah.
some of the bleed.
I agree.
Right.
So are you, just final question, I'm so sorry that I'm carrying this on. Are you saying that it's not in your control right now to put the test with the application?
What we did is, when they have to come and sign up to take the test.
Right, but is it not in your control to put the test with the application?
The
That's
application is with it, where they have to fill it in and they can send it to us and email it to us, right? But there was no way to join the two up, either from the National Testing Network or from what Civil Service approved.
fine. Okay,
Okay?
so it's not in your
And
control.
so I went through a lot of meetings, a lot of discussions with civil service to get this approved. This was the compromise where we got, so we could get the process going. And that's what I'm saying is there's a lot of reasons to how we got here. I don't believe that it is perfect, and I take all the things that you say to heart because I agree with you. And it's something that I'm passionate about and trying to fix them. But there's a lot of steps along that way, and that's something that the city administrator and I have already had great conversations about of we need to start fixing these, because that is still one small hurdle in the thing. The other hurdle is how many, the civil service rules haven't changed for the most part since 1963, and that's part of my problem. And so I'm stuck with those civil service rules from 1963. So for example, somebody gets a huge percentage if they have military points, and they get that tacked on. So often what I've seen is in all the candidates that took the test, the top scorers were all automatically people that passed the test that had military points. Now, although I think that it's great that we get credit for people who served in this country, that doesn't always mean that I can control all of it, because somebody that maybe got a much lesser score than a good quality candidate that was not in the military is not going to be able to get anywhere close to that score that I'm going to be able to when I say civil service, I need to interview the top 10. I need to interview the top 20. The top 15 of those candidates, right, are all military points and active and the stuff that way. There's just a lot of things that go into this, which is why I'm glad that you invited me and we're having this conversation. But there's a lot of things that I'm saying we do need to fix. It's going to take a lot of time. We've started down that path for a lot of those things. It's just unfortunately Rome wasn't built in a day.
I guess I'm stuck at we have no way of reaching people in this day of technology. We can't find them somewhere.
We have tried.
I mean, between civil service, certainly they have their name, address, and
number,
and
email.
and social security number. Excuse me, on the civil service. Why in the heck can't we cross-reference that in some database somewhere? I mean, y'all are police. You have access to stuff, right?
We have tried, and like I said, I think it has a lot to
Heck,
do with.
search for them on Facebook or Instagram or.
Yeah, say, hey, you didn't
Somewhere.
Right, just where you
I mean, I feel like there's a
We-
way to find people.
We tried to set up interviews in all these different ways. Like I said, even the ones that turned in applications and we went through, we had a lot of no call, no shows, even after they called us and said, yeah, I'll be available and I'll be here for that interview.
Well, we just talked about no call, no shows.
Right?
We don't like those.
I understand it. It's a part of a bigger problem that's going on in society.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a society problem. The minute you said that.
And I also have that problem too, is,
everybody
you know,
knew about this job.
I'm supposed to trust somebody and know their character and give them a badge and a gun and give them one of the greatest responsibilities that we have out there to go out and take away people's freedom and liberty, and they can't even be responsible enough to call me and tell me they're not going to show up for the interview. Or they can't.
No-shows are different, you're
Right.
right.
Right. But
So I'm
people
just saying
who
there's a lot of-
accidentally
But maybe
fill out-
just an information page, you know, with the civil tests, civil service tests is good enough. I mean, I've
We-
taken that, I mean, when I've
We-
done it before.
We sent out through the National Testing Network when there was a week left to go in it. Then we knew we didn't have a way to contact people. We sent it out through them to say, remind them, we need something to be able to contact people. And we still didn't have ways to do that. And we still didn't, it's sometimes the nature of what we're dealing with. Like I said, we have tried a lot of different things. Out of those were the 33 candidates that we had access to and interviewed and went forward.
Quick question, if someone's really interested in the job and they don't hear from you in a certain amount of time, or they want a second interview, wouldn't they reach out to you? How could they just disappear if they're not interested in the job? You know what I'm saying? You can't find their contact info, but people follow up at least maybe 2 weeks later in a job that they're really interested in, or what went wrong? Did I
Well-
pass the test, or?
So I think there's a lot of other, yeah, there's also a lot of other moving parts with it because the National Testing Network, we paid for them to use their test, basically, okay? But what they also do is nationally, you apply and say, okay, this police department is hiring. I'm gonna take their test, but they're testing from nationwide. They can test from anywhere, okay? And then if they take the test for us, they're allowed to also use their test score, right, for any other department that they want. So I don't know if some of that also has to do with they're taking the test for us, they're getting a score and they didn't like their score and they want to go somewhere else, so they're taking the test again to get a better score, or if they're taking the test for us, they get their score and what they really don't want to come here, they're actually wanting to go somewhere else, right? Or they realize suddenly, you know what, I'm in Atlanta and I'm taking this test. I really don't want to come up to Cincinnati anymore. You know, there's just a lot of variables that way. And we use the National Testing Network because they seem to be the better one, and because the fire department has used them several times with some good luck, and they were recommended by several others, so we gave that a shot.
So going on to a new topic, if you don't mind, have you done like exit interviews with your 3 people who quit, one of them for some random reason, then the 2 who quit to go to a better paying job? Have you done exit interviews with them to kind of figure out, because I mean, I'm a teacher. If I like the school I'm at, I'm going to be willing to take a lower paying salary to stay at the school that I like and teach with the kids that I enjoy teaching with. I feel like for police officers it may be similar. Have you done the exit interviews with them to figure out, hey, what might be the problems with our HR parts, and try to figure out how to retain more officers?
I have. There's a lot of things that go into that. There's a lot of specifics that would go into that, and I would be more than happy to discuss them, but based on the things with that we have, I think those personnel issues would probably be better served in an executive session rather than airing them out in an open meeting.
That's valid. Thank you. I appreciate that you did them at least.
Next, sir. I'm sorry.
That slide took forever.
Sorry. So my last slide, here's what we have done so far, and I just want you guys to be aware of what we've done. Okay? So normally we do all kinds of different things for overtime. We've had to, just out of necessity, created a mandatory overtime list. The mandatory overtime list is simple. If I order you into work on today's date because you were the first one then that date goes on here, and then it's somebody else's turn. And then it's somebody else's turn, and then it's somebody else's turn. Because we have so many overtime shifts, that way it's a little fair. Okay? That not the new person is getting messed with every single time to work every single shift.
So you're saying this is not seniority based?
This is not seniority based when we're doing the mandatory overtime. Okay? And we've created this list for the time being. And I went and had a meeting 2 or 3 weeks ago with all the representatives from the union, invited the entire department, and said, here's where we're at. We're going to be down 5 people because one doesn't retire. His official last day is August 2nd. Okay. We're going to be down 5 spots, and we know we need to field train these folks, and we know we're going to be down these spots on the schedule. So I'm being honest with you when I'm sitting you in here and saying some things have to change. We can't just go on business as usual. And it does say in the contract that certain of these things are management rights, and I can do these for the health and the efficiency, if you would, of the police department. So I'm giving you some input. I'm telling you why we need it, so that we don't have the grievances and the things filed that way. Okay? So we created the mandatory overtime list. Changed the officer schedule for temporary service. So previously they were on what they called the hospital schedule. It's what they put in the contract. That's the schedule that they wanted to work, which was an 8-hour day. Okay. They have since then gone to a 4 and 2, so 4 days on, 2 days off, 4 days on, 2 days off rotation, which we believe that with everything, they don't get nearly the weekends that they used to. which is what they're upset about, but I get better coverage for right now with what we have going on and the limited staff we have. So for example, when we looked at that, and they just switched over to that yesterday, okay? And I did that because I gave them 2 weeks notice time frame to say, now I'm switching schedules because of people taking vacation time, having kids, and being able to plan for that. I'm trying to be somewhat reasonable while we get what we need to do that. We did that because on a normal day, if we had kept it on their hospital schedule, I was going to have an average of 32 hours of overtime just in one weekend alone, based on the staffing levels that we had. Going to this new schedule, if nobody takes off, nobody calls in sick, don't grant vacation time, I won't have any of the overtime. Okay? So I told them it was temporary. When we get people back up to staffing, then we can renegotiate it and we can go back in and look at it. And they can have their weekends and we can sit down and discuss a schedule. But I felt that that was the fair way to do it. And that was the kind of leader that I wanted to be, was just tell them what I was facing, be open and honest with them, give them a chance to give me some input, but then tell them what I needed to do, and then give them time to acclimate to the change. So we have already gone through those steps. Okay? I already talked about it. We canceled the SRO from going to the school. We took one detective out of the investigations and put him on the road. So basically subsequented those 2 positions at the time. Okay?
With the mandatory overtime list, you said it's not based on seniority, but you evenly split it between each of the officers?
So everybody's name went on the list based on seniority, so that we senior officer first.
So it is based on seniority.
To start with, okay? So when we had to start it, we started it from scratch, we started it that way, okay? If a shift comes up and I put out a page and nobody's volunteering to fill it, nobody says, I'll work it, and I have to order somebody in from home, right? We go according to the list. So if you would be the least senior person, then you would get Monday. So we would tell you ahead of time, you're being mandated to come in and work on Monday. Okay? But then if a mandatory overtime shift comes up on Wednesday, then I go down the list to the next person because you've already taken your turn in the barrel, basically.
Gotcha.
So you go to the bottom of the list, and then it's the next person's turn, and then it's the next person's turn, and then it's the next person's turn. Okay? And that was one of the things that the officers asked for to be able to do, so that you didn't just have one person being mandated in all the time.
Right. I have a few more questions.
Sure.
I'm sure you got my email of all my questions. I sent in my list of questions earlier so you could prepare. I was at a lot. So I know that you said the officers, especially because you are so low on officers, that they have a busy schedule, and I understand that. What's the normal cruiser route? Because I've lived in North Colorado my whole life. When I was little, every day, the same police officer would drive down my street on the Rand, and we'd wave to him, and every single day that would happen. That hasn't happened since I was like 10 years old, and that's way before all of these people have quit and all of the, low rates of officers have happened. So what's going on with that? Are our officers driving around and, watching the neighborhoods and patrolling and getting to know people and all that jazz?
They are, but you have to remember that it also is based on the calls for service. Our calls for service and the amount of calls that we get nowadays are not the same of what it was 10 years ago. It's not the same of what it was 20 years ago. Okay? When we look at our calls for service, usually, we are the 5th busiest agency in all of Hamilton County. So when you look at that and you put that in comparison, you have agencies like City of Cincinnati, Hamilton County Sheriff's Office, Coleraine Township, Springfield Township, and then us. So per officer, we could honestly make the claim that we are the busiest in all of Hamilton County based on the number of officers we have and the number of calls for service that we have to handle. And so if you remember my slide where I said we put it in terms of reactionary, what things that we have to provide, we have to be able to answer those calls for service. We try to maintain at least a 2-minute response time when we can, right? I noticed that sometimes there's City of Cincinnati's response times, there's sometimes 25, 30 minutes response time based on what they're doing. Okay? So we try to be responsible for that. I did a study at one point for my CLE project, which is the Certified Law Enforcement Executive Program, about staffing levels. And when I factored all of those things in and how much time it took us just to handle the calls for service, for example, on second shift, if I did nothing but have the officers on average just respond to the radio runs and do the paperwork that's associated with that, I would need 1.4 officers to do nothing more than just respond to those calls. No patrolling, no alternate duty assignments, no community engagement, no traffic stops, nothing else. So it plays a part in what we do because all of those things are important for what we do. We need to be out there and do traffic enforcement. You're right. We need to be out there and patrol, right? And I'm constantly on them about patrolling with a purpose of what we're doing. And that's where my stuff with the CompStat or the data-driven things come in, right? Which also has a part in that. Because what I'm asking them to do is instead of just, I have this theory that, right, part of a lot of what we should be doing is crime prevention. Everybody knows that when you call 911, we should show up and we should try to handle that professionally. But also a good estimate for me of a good police department is what we do to try to combat the crime or keep it from happening. So what I try to do is I try to look at the data-driven numbers and say, okay, if I lived in the southwest section of town and I knew that in the southwest section of town, based on all the alleys that we have that butt up against everybody's house, that you are 5 times more likely to have your house broken into on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday during the day, because that's what the numbers show. When people are working, I put all my officers in that southwest section of town, tell them they need to go through the alleys in their discretionary time, and you need to check in for anybody suspicious, anybody look like a back door's kicked in, and we need to hit every one of those alleys on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday on day shift.
But do you warn those people who live in those houses, hey, there have been 20 break-ins in the last month on these 3 alleys at this time of day?
We have in the past. It has been something that we have not had a chance to get back to, and I would like to make a bigger effort on that. There's been a lot of things going on. I know for a long time, Facebook took down a lot of municipalities' Facebook pages, and we didn't have access to our own Facebook page up until a couple months ago. It was very sporadic, and they kept kicking us off. There's a lot of different things that we need to get back to. I'll be honest, it's been a few years since we had the CompStat numbers where I invited all the officers to come in and to do some of that. Right now, it's just me pumping out those numbers and telling them what I want them to do. Okay?
Can I back you up to your statistics for a minute? And you're talking about, and I didn't write it down, but how many calls you guys get, and you're the busiest PD.
I just said I
Whatever.
could make the argument for
Right. But I hear that same thing from the fire department. I'm thinking, how in the world, 1.8 square miles, and how are we the busiest? It flabbergasts me. But, so what I want to know is, are what's the word I'm looking for? The reciprocal kind of calls, are those included in those stats? Or are those just North College Hill stats? Thank you.
Yes. Those are included in those stats. We average roughly about 16,000 to 18,000 calls for service a year.
In North College Hill?
In North College Hill. Okay?
Okay.
And from the police department standpoint, when I've looked at our mutual aid numbers, it's usually pretty even. And what I mean by that is we go over to back up Coleraine Township just as much as they come over to back us up. And vice versa.
I'm not trying to make that argument whatsoever. I needed to have a better understanding of.
Yes, our mutual aid responding to other places included in those calls for service.
Thank you.
Yes.
So this kind of leads into one of my other questions. I worked at Skyline for 3+ years. I mean, I was there all the time. And I mean, the NCH police officers came in all the time. And this was way before I was on council. I mean, they'd sit there for hours eating lunch. And I'm sure they still do it. And there were probably 2 or 3 officers who every time they got a call, those were the ones who had to leave to lunch, and they went, and then the rest of them would all just sit there. And so I'm not, this isn't me trying to accuse you of lying or trying to accuse any of your officers of lying, but I find it hard to believe that they don't have time to do these cruiser routes when I've seen them sitting there at Skyline for hours chatting. That's why I'm kind of frustrated, because I know that other people in the community have seen the same thing, and it's not just me, and it's not just, you know, some random angry lady on Facebook who's complaining and yelling. I know that a lot of people have seen stuff like this. So that's why I feel like I'm a little frustrated. Again, I don't think that you're lying to us. I don't think that any of your officers are lying to you, but I'm just finding it hard to believe when I know my eyes aren't lying to me either. So I guess my question around that is, how do you track things like breaks? How do you track things like what they're spending their time on when they're not doing the cruising and when they're not answering calls? And so let's say if you and the lieutenant, Mr. Petroselli, are the ones tracking that, how are you tracking that? So I understand that you're saying you're the one tracking that, you're the one approving the overtime, but how are you doing that? How are you going in and making sure that these people are doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Gotcha. So the only thing that we can do for right now, and the way we track that, is when it comes to their evaluations, we track the stats and the numbers. So to me, it goes without saying that I gave you the calls for service. So in their evaluations, they get evaluated on the things that they do. So if you're an officer for me and you pick up, 300, 400, 500 calls for service, but then your other officer on this shift only picks up, 50, we have an issue there and we need to look at that, okay? When we look at traffic stops, okay, and to do traffic stops, I say I want them to go out and I need them to be proactive because traffic is an important thing. After COVID, the sheer number of calls that we've gotten on the complaints of traffic violations and things that way, right? I need you to go out and run traffic. It is part of your job. It's part of your job and description is to do that traffic enforcement, okay? I ask them to make 1 traffic stop a shift.
I need a cop to be back in the old dry cleaners for the people coming down, because I know I'm going to get T-boned coming out of Sundale Avenue, because people run that red light. They're flying, and when I say, I bet they're doing 50 coming down that hill, and then they run the red light. I know I'm going to get T-boned. It's on the record right now. I'm going to get T-boned at Sundale and Hamilton Avenue. It's going to happen. I need somebody to sit there again, or sit over in not AutoZone. What's the Valvoline?
And
Yeah.
same right out of Clovernal. I mean, they run that light all the time, and I understand, like you said, your officers are busy, but
So to answer, let me finish, I'm sorry.
no,
So
you're fine. Go ahead.
when we're looking at it, we look at all of those things, okay? So we were looking at all the categories from how do they handle it, right? How many calls to service did you handle? How many reports did you do? How many reports did you get kicked back? How many arrests did you make? How many arrests, right?
What does kickback mean?
Well,
Reports like if you type up an offense report and there's all kinds of errors.
okay, so I kind of have a question along the same lines of what they were saying. So in Arlington Heights, they have created this, the don't speed through here, you're gonna get a ticket. Now, I haven't seen an Arlington Heights police officer on that stretch of 75 probably in I don't know how long. But I still slow down going through that stretch because they were there so much for such, however long, just that when you get on 75 right there and go just before you get to Glendale, nobody speeds through there. Everybody slows down. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. Is there something we can do that way? The only reason I'm jumping in this is because I keep getting emails about traffic and speeding
And I agree. And here's my point to all of this. All of these things are important. And all of these things play a part in all the things that we do. Because if I'm an officer on day shift, I have to be responsible for all of those things. I have to be responsible for my beat. which means I have to go down and drive down those streets and I have to wave to people and I have to be looking for something. What am I looking for? Why? Because that's what the chief wants. You're not just driving around aimlessly, right? You're not, I don't just give you a cruiser and say, go hide in a tree in this quadrant somewhere, right? What are you doing with that time? And why are you doing that? And then, where are you going to run patrol? Where are you going to run and go write your tickets? Because we get lots of complaints, right? And the complaints shift from where they're needed, from Hamilton and Sundale to Hamilton or to Clovernook, right? All of those things are important, as well as all of the patrol time and all of the things that they have to do. And my point is, in an 8-hour day, they have to find a way to do all of them. And it's my job to hold them accountable to that on the evaluations, which we do. And there's some officers who do a very good job of being well-rounded at all of them. And then there's some of those officers that, I'm not going to lie, that, you know what, I like taking reports, but I don't like running traffic. Or I like running traffic, but I don't like taking reports, and I don't do this as much. So it's constantly that give and take, and it also comes down to the supervision. Okay? And as we've had this turnover, right, there's also a whole young crop of and new generation that's coming in that we have to teach that same thing. And so I get back to that saying of Rome wasn't built in a day. All of the things that you guys are saying, I agree with. They're all very important. But which one is more important? I don't know. It depends upon the day. It depends upon what we're talking about. It depends upon the shift. It depends upon the area of town and how many complaints we've got. Okay? And so I can't always stand up here and give the answer of, yes, I promise I will have one car drive down every street or just sit on every street for this, but we just don't have the resources. We try, and I'd love to.
I'm still just having a hard time. I've seen them, sit at Skyline for hours. And it's frustrating because I believe that you're trying, but I have a hard time when I'm seeing other stuff. And so, is there like a set time? Like, oh, they have a half an hour for lunch. They have an hour for lunch. They have 2 smoke breaks a day. They have 15-minute breaks a day. Is there a set time for stuff like that? And how are people tracking that? How are you tracking that?
So there's not for that reason, because we're not like your normal everyday job
Right.
where
I
you
understand.
get and say, okay, you get a half an hour for lunch. They don't get necessarily lunch.
Right.
And it's a give and take, because there's some days that they're busy and they don't get to take a lunch. There's some days, right, that they've been busy and now they know they're not busy. They're going to take that opportunity, take a deep breath and say, I just got caught up on all my stuff. And if they take an hour lunch, right, because they do, I know that they do. I have a core group of people on day shift. They like to call it Skyline Fridays, and
Yep, I've seen 'em.
they go to Skyline every Friday.
Yep.
But they only go to Skyline every Friday and sit there every Friday when they got everything else that they've needed to do get caught up.
But they're still getting paid for that time if they're sitting at Skyline for 2 hours. And I understand the wanting to take a breather. I understand that. But I'm just still a little frustrated
Right.
because there is so much that could be done.
And I understand that, but that's also part of the thing to me. They're also getting paid, and they're still in the city. They're also still going to get up from their meal and respond to the calls for service, and they're not going to go over there unless they got their other things done. So again, it's that give and take.
And that's only if their officer's going though, right? I mean, because if there's staff going too.
Yeah, there's staff going. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not just officers.
They're not gonna get up and go on a run.
Right.
They're still gonna sit there for the 2 hours. I have a completely topic change. Okay. So is it possible, and I don't know, but you would be the person to know, is it possible to put up signs to restrict semis passing through? And they can be semis for local deliveries only. So like someone getting, a semi getting off cross county to come up Hamilton and go all the way up Hamilton to go to Coleraine. Can Can we do that? Is that feasible? Because now we have a nice new road, and I don't want the semis tearing it up. So that's kind of where I am in
I
in
don't
this
think
whole
you
ball
can
of
do
wax.
that. Now, what I've seen other cities and other places do is do it by the load.
Right.
And you would cite them for what you have under the Ohio Revised Code, and I believe we do have an ordinance for that that says a heavy load, where what that means is if a commercial tractor trailer comes through and they're overweight, that is automatically going to tear up, and they're overweight because they can haul more and they can get away with it. That's going to tear up the road.
How would we possibly know? How would your officers possibly know what it weighs?
That's the problem, is you would have to buy a scale or have the scales to do that.
Well,
It's
that's
a
not
very
happening.
expensive ticket.
Have the officers enforce it.
Yes,
Right.
right. But you can't just put a blanket thing that says you can't, that I'm aware of, that you just can't travel through here unless it's local deliveries.
Okay. It was a shot.
My question, and I admit it's a bit personal. So I get periodically, when I say periodically, at least once a week, an officer, racing down my street with no lights on. And a couple times I've had to like snatch my little one back to say, hey, hold on, there's no lights, there's no warning, there's nothing. And then they get down to the end of the street, right? I live in Marvin right here.
Okay.
Get down to the end of the street to stop and then go down to the cul-de-sac. I don't get it. Like, why do you have to go that fast to get right down to the cul-de-sac? At least once or twice a week I have that. I can't even see who it is fast enough. Like, it's like my dog, everything.
Kind of on that topic too, have you guys ever considered like a GPS or like a tracker like that? There are lots of trackers that track the speed and that track the quality, and that I'm understanding, I know that you guys are limited on money, but I feel like that could also be a money saver, because if you have cars that are speeding for no reason, then you're obviously not gonna have to get repairs done as much if they're not speeding for no reason.
We've tried to look into grants for that, but it also comes down to just the finances. Right now, I'm not gonna lie, I've had a heck of a time, and I am already going to be over budget, my vehicle maintenance budget this year, just trying to keep the cars on the road.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your question.
And
I
so-
just- mine was
so
similar.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm honestly saying if you find a better way, unfortunately, it always comes down to this. As I've explained it to many people, the way I look at it is we are a small city with big city problems and a small city budget. And so I constantly, when we have these things, we can compare ourselves to the city of Cincinnati often, but unless you're also comparing my budget to the city of Cincinnati's and their overtime, I don't necessarily think it's quite fair. I'm open to suggestions and willing to do a lot of things. I can only do so much with the resources that I'm given. As far as that goes, I don't know why that's going on, and if it continues.
I can't even see who it is. They're going so fast.
Okay.
Really don't.
Well-
Honestly.
They do it in Leboydo and Bising too. It's happened a handful of times.
Yeah, they do
Like
it on
my
Clovernal.
son just crossed the sidewalk, the stop sign,
Addresses on
and it
there.
was like,
If you
whoo,
see it
real
happen,
fast.
Email me with nothing, if nothing else, just the time of day, and I will find out what's going on.
At least get their sirens on so
Right.
that.
Yeah, that's
Well,
all I'm saying. If it's an emergency, just
Yeah.
put the lights on or something, but you have no lights. All I hear is, and I'm literally like scrambling for
So,
where my kid is.
and here's where, the only thing that I can possibly think of that's going on, and it's not an excuse, it's just letting you know, is we have what we call a code 2 or code 3 response, okay? And the general version of that is a code 3 response means overhead lights and sirens, okay? And that is used for almost all the emergency response. However, sometimes what we call a code 2 response, right, is warranted. Sometimes I can see stopping the emergency response, no overheads or siren. And I'm sorry, code 2 response is no siren, okay? And the idea behind that is,
Not to alert the person that you're calling.
correct.
But
So,
2 or 3 times a week.
which is why I'm not buying that, and I'm saying I want to get down to the bottom of it, okay? Because one time if they were going to a call, I could understand that. Because if I'm going to a domestic violence situation where the person is armed with a gun, okay, I don't want to run lights and sirens
No,
tactically all the way up to the front door and alert them that I'm coming. It puts me in jeopardy, it puts the other officers responding in jeopardy, and it puts the victim in jeopardy.
Right.
Okay? So I do understand that. But what you're telling me, I can't buy. I don't agree with what they're doing, and I will get to the bottom of it. Because one time like that, if it was a call and you were to email me or you were to tell me that was going on, I could be able to look up time of day, see what was going on that street, and go, okay, this is why they did that. But 3 times a week, I'm not buying it. And I agree with you, it's not gonna continue to happen. So let me know, and I will find out who's doing it just based on who's working, and I will fix it.
Well, Chief, just in your system, of course, you log reports.
Mhm.
Do you log if it was a code 2 or a code 3? So, but you could look at the street and say,
Yes.
we've had X number of calls.
I could very easily look at the time of day, when it was, the number of calls, and whose beat it was, and figure that out. Okay? Because primarily our beat and our patrol structure is this. We have the one unit, okay? The number 1 unit is usually the primary beat car. They're the first to get the calls for service, and they're everything south of Galbraith. Okay? And then the number 2 beat is everything north of Galbraith. They're usually the primary backup call, or the backup person. And then if you have additional, like a supervisor or somebody else on, then they're additional to that, okay? And that's supposed to be their primary beat structure and what areas of town they're supposed to be in.
I'm gonna change the subject again if you guys don't mind. I know that there have been a lot of issues with people complaining that the officers are taking smoke breaks on the on city property, and I know that there's not an ordinance against that. So do what you gotta do. But how often do the officers take smoke breaks, and where are they permitted to? Because you guys are right by the school, and I think that it looks pretty bad if an officer looks like they're smoking on school grounds. So I just was curious, do you guys have kind of a protocol? When are you allowed to take smoke breaks? How often? Where are you allowed to go and smoke? Because I understand, you gotta do what you gotta do, whatever. But I want to make sure that our city looks good, especially if our officers are doing something that kind of looks, a little sketchy. You definitely want to kind of nip that in the bud.
Isn't it the law that you're not allowed to smoke in the car? Because that's considered a company vehicle, right?
Right. So we do have a policy in the books, and there have been a few that have been disciplined recently for smoking in the cars. The only place that we do have and are permitted to smoke is out back of the PD. The health department did say that that was acceptable because it is not open to the public, as we have the no trespassing signs, and it's private back there because of the things that way. Okay? There used to be a fence there, and it was a privacy fence all along there. It was in disrepair, and when they built the new schools, that was one of the things that the school asked for, is to not have that up, and that took away anybody's privacy of a place to go and to be able to relax. So they do go back there. And I'll be honest, I'm one of the ones that goes back there. Okay? And I think a lot of the folks that are out there, they're not even the smokers, but they come out there because when we want to have our meetings and I need to brief them on things, I ask them, would you rather go to my office and sit inside, or would you rather go out back? Most of the time they tell me they'd rather go out back. So there is a lot of work getting done, right? And that's the kind of boss I am, is I don't put a limit on the smoke breaks. I deal with the behavior that's there. If they're allowed to smoke there, and I don't want them smoking the cars, I make it very clear. I will discipline you if you're smoking in the car. If you're out here and you're smoking and you're doing it in the designated area, I'm fine with that. If you are not getting your work done, if you are not doing the things that you're supposed to and the things that I'm asking you to do, then you will get disciplined for that, right? I guess I'm looking at it in the terms of we do have a very tough job. And I try to be realistic with the officers when it comes to that and give in a little bit when I can so that it was worth more when I ask for those things. I can tell you that I was never a smoker and I smoke cigars now, and that started because of a tradition that was here. When I started on second shift, it was when you went out and you patrolled and you went out and you got a gun off the street or you made a felony arrest and saved somebody's life, The officers that were here then handed me a cigar and said, "Here you go, kid. You get a felony cigar for a job well done." And we would sit down and have a debriefing over that. And that was the way I learned. And it's one of those traditions that now we kind of carry on. So a lot of people, to everybody else, would see us sitting back there and see a group of officers who are standing around and not realizing or think we're just playing around. We're just messing around.
Chief, what's behind this building? I just saw two cars go by.
The gas pumps.
Oh, okay. It's like, what's back there? Okay.
Yeah. Public Works and the gas pumps. That's where everybody fills up with gas.
Okay.
Okay? So it's constantly one of those. Okay? I can tell you that, after a run the other night where they made a traffic stop and they found a loaded gun on the car, and we had the new trainees who didn't know what to do. I can tell you, yes, we sat out there. There was 2 officers that were smoking, but we all sat out there. I sat on the bench. 2 of the other officers sat on the bench, and we went over the entire incident in the policy in a training session so that they knew what to do and they knew what went wrong, what needed to get fixed, what they did well, and all of those things. So I would also say keep some of those in mind, right? From COVID, what we've learned is, right, the staff meetings and the meetings that do take place can take place in all kinds of different forms and all kinds of different mediums. For us, for whatever reason, some of my folks on day shift, and I'm included in that, we like to have those meetings and those things out there sitting on the benches. Part of it is, right, our air conditioning and our stuff is old and stuffy in that building too. We like to be outside seeing the neighborhood and seeing everybody, right? I take the blame for a lot of that because I got into this business because I wanted to be out in a cruiser. I wanted to be out talking to people. So getting me in my office where I feel secluded and stuffy, I don't like that. I like having my meetings outside, especially if the weather's nice. So I'm one of probably the biggest offenders of that, and keep that in mind that just because you see us out there, one, doesn't mean we're not working or we're not doing something productive, right? And number 2, I give them a little bit of leeway or a little bit of extra leeway for the tough jobs that they do, especially if they're trying to abide by the rules.
I guess the one thing that that pops into my head is I wonder if any of the newbies, the green people, would feel pressured to sit in a smoking area if they don't smoke.
Right, it's a culture of it.
Right, because the chief said we're gonna go outside and have a smoke and talk about this, and now there's an intimidation factor kind of thing, right?
Right, you're the chief. If you
Right.
want to end a smoking tradition of going back and debriefing over scars, do that. And I mean, I'm not judging anybody's habits. Do what you got to do, but I don't know. I'm a little frustrated that that's the excuse that it's just the way that the old boys do it. Like, come on, give us something better. Come on, there's something better to that. I understand that going back and debriefing. I get it. I get that your job's tough. I'm not trying to knock your habit, but I can understand where you might kind of create a culture where, we go in the back and we take these long breaks and we debrief and with the new people coming in. I think it's a culture aspect. You're the chief. You're the big dog. You can do something about that culture.
You're getting a ticket when you leave.
I know. I got nervous. I'm not speaking out close. So let me tell you that. I don't actually drive a Red Sierra, but that's not my car.
Does anybody, okay, thank you, Chief Sharan,
Thank
for
you.
coming.
I told you it wasn't going to be 2 minutes. I'm
And
sorry.
talking, yeah, and just kind of answering questions and being on the hot seat. And I hope that you would be willing to come back if we invite you back again.
Anytime.
So we'll certainly, I'll take very good notes and share those with everybody, and then we'll try to see if we can't, what we can do to try to help you help us, or whatever, however that goes.
Oh, I have a quick one. Sorry. Are you guys allowing ride-alongs?
Yes.
They're back?
Mhm.
Okay. What do I need to do to get that to happen? That email address that you
Mhm.
handed to one of my
here.
council members? No, I got
Yeah.
it. I'm
Text
teasing.
it to you.
No, I have it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just let me know.
Perfect. Thank you.
Let me know a shift and how long you want to ride. And
I just
Tracy-
didn't know if you guys.
We are
went
back to
it
doing,
from
we are
COVID.
back to doing ride-alongs, and
Okay.
it's something that I actually talked to my lieutenants and the officers about today. That we were gonna mention to Tracy about the same thing. We are open and more than willing to do exactly that, so that you can kind of see those things as well. And we would, now that things have kind of opened up again, we would really appreciate that. If anybody on council, anybody would love to do that, please email me, let me know. We would love to set that up. And we'll put you in the car and have you ride along with us, and you get to see firsthand some of the things that I'm talking about. Because me standing up here at the podium, I try to give you the insights of my 16 years here in North College Hill and give you the things that way, but it's completely different when you see exactly what I'm talking about, the calls that we go to and what they're going to and dealing with.
Right.
And I'm not going to sit up here and sugarcoat it and tell you we're perfect, because we're not. We've got a lot of work to do. But I will tell you that I'm passionate about trying to better North College Hill, and especially the police department, because in the 6 years I've been chief, that's all I've ever said. I always want to leave it better than I found it. And I'm always striving to get better. And we can always agree to disagree sometimes. Most of the time, we always agree on the stuff. But I would really honestly love that opportunity. I know so would the officers. For anybody who's interested, email me, come ride along with them, get to know them, and see some of the things that they're dealing with. Because I promise you, I think that it'll open your eyes in a lot of ways to some of the things that, one, go on in this city, and number two, just how much that it is that they have to deal with and work with, and all the different hats, as I say, that they have to juggle on a given shift. And that may also shine some light on a bunch of the topics and the things that I've talked about here.
Okay.
So we would love and relish that opportunity.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, also, I will forward that presentation to each of the members of the council.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mosby. Okay, so I'm gonna breeze through the rest of the agenda, obviously, because we're running way behind. We have our old business. We're still talking about the traffic calming study and Prospect Place. Any new business from anybody?
Hi, thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Any new business? Okay, so I didn't write down any action items other than the obvious, get the notes together and share those with council. And I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It is 9:17. I'm sorry.
I have a question. You didn't ask for a question. So after Chief Sharan left, is there a time to us to debrief and comment on what all he presented? Or do we just
Well,
send our?
no, we can
email?
we can debrief.
How do
I
we do
agree.
it tonight?
I was just about to say, I think we need to debrief. Obviously, there's a couple of things. It's late and it is very hot in this room. I am just like barely able to breathe right now. So, not exaggerating. It is really, really bad.
We
So
just thought you were being polite and not asking a bunch of questions, because
No.
you couldn't breathe.
I cannot, right. I am just like dying over here, like, I literally am like, I'm bringing a fan next time because I cannot sit in here with this temperature. I cannot do it. I was told that it was coming, but it's here and I cannot do that. Can't happen. Okay, so, sorry, I digressed, but yes, I think that we definitely
So
need
is that
to
just next meeting?
debrief. We can have a special meeting. We can talk about it. I can do a special meeting, so we can just kind of talk about it.
Next
Or,
meeting.
we're doing the fire task force, so we can talk about it as a part of the fire task force, which I need to start as well, so. Okay, so there's an action item. All right, any questions, comments, concerns?
Thank you all for putting up with my multiple questions.
Oh, no, I thought they were all good questions.
Oh, thanks. I spent like 2 weeks thinking about them
I
all.
had just one more question to refresh.
I know.
my-
I don't speak the
Ron,
resolution anymore
when I
because-
was canvassing yesterday, and I know you told us this, but I was canvassing for signatures yesterday, and one of the residents asked me, when we'll be paving under our half, under the Cross County Bridge? That's in 2022?
You're talking about Hamilton Avenue?
Hamilton Avenue. That's what I told him. Okay, that was one thing I wanted to ask you, because, you know, when you talk to residents, they have questions, so. But then they didn't understand about Mount Healthy, and I said, well, that's their half, I mean.
But the project is we're doing in partnership with them.
Good,
So we're
okay.
going from our southernmost point to their northernmost.
Okay,
So
good.
we looked at it as one project.
Good, wonderful. I'll let him know next time I see him. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 9:19 PM. Thanks, everybody, for coming.